All right, we are back on the road to WrestleMania. This is the Mania of WrestleMania 18 and 19, and I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And once again, Pat Mullen called away to do hero-type things to save the day in the five boroughs of New York City. And instead, we have from movies that don't suck and some that do, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Blackwood. How do you do, sir?
Good. I can't wait to talk some wrestling because I'm in WrestleMania mode right now. I don't know if you know this. I am literally like 5 days from being down in Dallas, Texas for a whole week. So I'm excited to talk about some WrestleManias.
My wife and I made a concerted effort this year to start making new adult friends. You know, just like especially after the pandemic, we like, hey, we need to meet people. We need to make new friends. We need to kind of get out of this rut that we're in. And so lately, it's just like, you know, we are meeting people and we're trying to make meetups and dates and whatnot. And everyone's like, hey, can you meet the first week of April? No. I've got WrestleMania that whole weekend. Leave me alone. Got Ring of Honor, NXT, WrestleMania, Effie's Big Gay Brunch.
Oh, you think? Yeah. Are you going down to? Are you coming down to Dallas?
No, but but I'm live streaming all that stuff.
All of it. Wow.
We're doing a live stream. Me and Bill Yankovic from That Wrestling Show. This is all going to be out of date after this all passes, but who cares? Me and Bill Yankovic of That Wrestling Show are going to be doing a live stream of Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, and then Christian of X-Lapsed and whatever other comic podcast he does, one of my podsmen. He and I are doing NXT Stand and Deliver, and then him and Bailey are supposed to be doing both nights of WrestleMania with me. Plus, my other Indie-Sider friend, Harry Broadhurst, we're doing a whole bunch of. They're not live streams. We're going to do them as reviews, but I still got to watch this stuff. All that stuff from the GCW, the Collective. Yes. So Effie's Big Gay Brunch, Bloodsport, Joey Janela's Spring Break.
Going to the Big Gay Brunch.
You are?
Big Gay Brunch? Yeah.
Are you an ally, sir? Are you an ally of the community?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
And, not only me, but
hang on. Hooray for allies.
Not only me, but a friend of mine named Sandra. She's part of the Queen Street Posse from Inside the Ropes. Her and her co-host, who's from England, will be going there as well. We're meeting up like a group of people. And also a guy named Ray who runs Lucha Libre Wrestling here in Tulsa. We'll be all meeting up there as well. So that is one of the events that I'm looking forward to. We're doing like we're trying to go to the GCW Collective one. I already got tickets I have tickets for SmackDown, Hall of Fame, WrestleMania Night 1 and 2, Monday Night Raw for sure. But I know we're going to go to Wrestling Con at some time because there's a couple autographs I want to snag, like Rob Van Dam. I never met the guy. I'd really love to meet him.
That's awesome. Now, are you going with friends? Are you going with your wife? Or are you just going by yourself meeting people?
My good friend Topher, he is actually studying to be a pro wrestler. He just called me last night too. He had his first expedition match last night. And he's super excited about that. But me and him will be going down. And because how it worked out, because originally we were just going to go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll leave Tuesday. Now we figured that we're going the whole week. So now we have 3 different places we're actually going to be staying. So we got to stay at an Airbnb for 2 days, a different hotel one day, and then to the hotel I originally booked. So it's like we're going to be moving around Dallas, Texas.
My friend John and I did that with New York, where we stayed in Brooklyn when we went to do the Conrad and Bruce Pritchard talk. We did that. We did the Ring of Honor New Japan show at Madison Square Garden, and then we did NXT in Brooklyn. So we stayed at a really like nice. Did
it have bed bugs?
Well, when I do air quotes like that, I mean, it's one of these where it was clearly like a gentrified hotel kind of thing.
Right.
You know, like the money had moved into that area of Brooklyn, if you know what I mean. So we stayed at this really like chic hotel in Brooklyn. But then when it was time to go to WrestleMania, we moved to a hotel like just outside of wherever Giant Stadium is, MetLife Stadium. And we took an Uber, I think, to WrestleMania, which there are still people trying to get out of MetLife Stadium, 3 years later. What a mess that was.
See that.
All right, so when we last left our heroes, myself and Pat Mullen, and then before that, Stuart Lang, we've done pretty much the entire Attitude Era, the entire Monday Night Wars, WrestleMania 17, which I argue is the second peak of wrestling. I don't think there's ever been, in total numbers of people watching all at the same time, a better, more peak time than at WrestleMania 5 with Hogan and Savage, and then another peak again at WrestleMania 17. And I don't think it's ever been quite, I'm not talking strictly finances. I'm talking in terms of the most people watching at any one time. I don't think it has ever been any better than WrestleMania 17.
Around WrestleMania 17, you also got the show I was front row at Cleveland, Ohio, at the Gunda Arena when Vince McMahon bought his competition. But literally, Shane McMahon was the other who bought it, whatever.
So we talked about that with WrestleMania 17, that the week before, that Monday Night Raw was the Panama City WCW, and then and then the simulcast where at the very end of the show, Shane McMahon says, "I bought WCW from you," and then basically the Natural Born Thrillers and Stacy Keibler showed up at WrestleMania 17 and sat in the stands. That was what was left of WCW.
Like nobody wanted to come out of their contract. It seemed.
No.
I don't know why, man.
I said this to Pat when we talked about WrestleMania 17. I'm going to say it now, and then I'm going to leave it alone because we need to start actually talking about what leads to WrestleMania 18. But never forget that Bruce Pritchard's excuse for why the invasion went the way that it did is absolute horseshit. Okay.
Oh wow. What's his excuse?
So his excuse was he did the Donald Rumsfeld line. Let me give some context here. So the Donald Rumsfeld line is you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. And his whole thing was the reason why they had to put Austin in the invasion. They had to mix it up with certain people, and they didn't have basically the biggest stars they had were Booker T and DDP because nobody wanted out of their contracts. And so nobody, like Sting, Goldberg, Ric Flair, the NWO, nobody was available. Scott Steiner. But here's the thing, and this is important. Over the next 2 to 3 years, they all come over. Some of them within the next 6 months to a year. And my thing to Bruce Pritchard is then don't do the invasion until you have them. There was no reason. There was a whole year's worth of just Vince McMahon torturing WCW guys. That they could have done. Like if you think about that last episode of Nitro and Raw, he spends most of it just making fun of Jeff Jarrett.
You're fired, buddy.
They could have brought over everybody that they brought in: Booker T, DDP, Lance Storm, Mike Awesome. They could have brought in all those people, right? And they could have been like, just treat them like crap for the next year. Just job them out. Make their lives miserable on camera. Just keep referring to them as WCW guys. And then when you have Ric Flair, Goldberg, the NWO, Scott Steiner, then you say that, then you have the big, raucous break, where they're trashing wrestlers and, they're destroying the locker room and they're saying, we are not taking this anymore. Now you have an invasion and you have your stars. There was no reason not to wait a year. So Bruce was line about we had to do it now. No, you didn't. You weren't going out of business. There's no reason to rush this.
No, nobody really. I mean, to be 100% just like when they purchased, let's say, half the crew from ECW when they went out of business. It wasn't like we have to do an ECW invasion. I mean, they did an ECW invasion, I think, like in 98, 97 when RVD and not Samoa Joe, but Sabu came on. But I do not. This was the invasion angle was one of the most rushed angles in the entire history of pro wrestling, where they just completely messed it up.
It is historically the worst missed opportunity in the history of wrestling.
Yes, because and if you look like the Invasion pay-per-view, if you look at the matches they had, you can see there's so many filler matches. Like, why did we need Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick?
Yes,
You know,
we're gonna get there in a few minutes, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, because they rushed it, because they refused to. And what kills me is, I guess, you know, the counter argument, like, well, they didn't know Ric Flair was going to sign with them. They didn't know that Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash were going to come over. They didn't know Goldberg was eventually going to come over, or Scott Steiner. Then don't do it. Then just don't. then don't do an invasion angle. They like the dream fanboy thing of, ooh, what if Sting versus The Undertaker? What if Flair versus Hogan? Even though we actually did get that. What if this? What if that? Okay. We waited like this was the argument that Pat and I got into with WrestleMania 8. People waited forever, probably a little too long for Hogan Flair. And then when they got it, nobody wanted it. You
know? We got Hogan Flair. I was at that match, Hogan and Flair.
You were at the Bash of the Beach?
No. This is TNA. Okay. Years later, got like hip replacements. It was and the thing is, there was a pay-per-view called what is it called? Lockdown, and it was Team Hogan versus Team Flair, and like AJ Styles, RVDs were on their team. I can't remember everybody, Dudley's, I think, and I was just like, man. Both these guys do not need to be wrestling anymore. They just need to stop.
That was rough. But even like WrestleMania 8, you know, by the time we don't get Hogan Flair at WrestleMania 8 because when they were doing it on the house show loop, allegedly, and Bailey and Pat debated this. There's an argument to be made that people didn't want it once they saw it. So again, just to move this forward, and then we're going to jump right into the day after WrestleMania 17. There was no reason to do an invasion until you had the best guys to do it with. If you don't have them, just don't do the angle. Nobody needed it that badly to fucking ruin it. All right, so moving on. After WrestleMania 17, the big story coming out of WrestleMania 17, I did want to ask you this, is that Austin, and Pat and I talked about this on the last show, that this was a dumb ending. Austin turns on the fans. He joins up with Vince McMahon, and their whole explanation is
worst
basically
turn in history.
Yeah,
it that big of a.
I know I use this phrase all the time, but it really was like the best sex ever, right? And then right as you're about to climax, the girl says, "Ew, get off me." That is that main event for me.
I would have to agree, because I remember buying the pay-per-view for like $49.99 back then, or whatever it was. And having people over, and afterwards we're just like, what the heck? And I mean, I'm literally wearing the hat I wore that day. This is from 1999. I got, but one of the worst heel turns, just because it didn't make sense. What should have happened, and I still believe this to wholeheartedness, should have been as soon as Vince helped Stone Cold Steve Austin win the title, he should have took that chair, turned around, hit Vince with it, or hit him with the stunner, and then just walk out.
Yeah,
and that would have been the best thing.
You know what? You know what's funny? What they should have. You're absolutely right. What they should have done was he should have like given him the handshake, and then whoop, and then kick, boom, stunner. Vince McMahon goes to pieces, like, you know, because he's made of tiny pieces of chalk, and then Austin walks away. DTA, motherfuckers, don't trust anybody.
Yes,
and then we all go home happy. The wrestling is over. We don't need it anymore. We've all satisfied. Instead, they do this BS because, you know, I think in the years since when Austin's talked about it, when he's not talking about the rats in his garage, he also talks about if you've ever listened to the Stone Cold podcast.
Yes.
Okay, Vince, I got these rats. So when he's not talking about the rats, he does talk about how they felt at the time, and I can buy this argument that Austin needed a freshening up, that, you know, that he'd gotten kind of stale. They have The Rock, you know, at this point as like the lead baby face. They don't really have, other than maybe Kurt Angle, they don't really have good main event heels.
Well, Triple H too.
Yeah, and Triple H. Maybe let's try something with Austin again, give him a couple more years at the top, and in a different capacity.
I just thought about this. You know who else was heel at that time? was Undertaker. He was American Badass heel at the time, where he was
he
kind
a
of
heel though? Because I didn't think he was a heel. I just thought he was.
Well, I know he went to WrestleMania 18 as heel.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, against Ric Flair. So
just to kind of move this forward, and I could when I was talking about this previously, I couldn't quite place when this was, but I guess this is the beginning of the two-man power trip, because at Backlash 2001, which takes place on April 29th, 2001, from the Rosemont, from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, the main event is in fact the two-man power trip of Steve Austin and Triple H versus the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and The Undertaker, with the whole deal being all the titles are on the line. Whoever wins gets the whole kit and caboodle. This is really the only thing coming out of WrestleMania 17. I mean, there's the continued McMahon feud that extends itself into Shane McMahon versus the Big Show in a last man standing match. But other than that, everything else is just more of the same. And then the big deal. I actually like the two-man power trip. I know a lot of people hate it, but I liked it.
I was a huge fan of it until poor Triple H and his quadricep, ripped right off his leg. But I wanted to see where they were going with that. I'm sure what it was going to end in was going to be Triple H versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at the end, imploding on each other and blaming each other for losing or something like that. And that would have been a great run of matches to see. But to be honest, if you think about it, we never got that Stone Cold versus Triple H really big rivalry.
Right.
Ever, because of injuries or because they were all doing their parts in different places. But, and I think that's what that was leading up to for WrestleMania 18 to be exact.
So between WrestleMania and the summer pay-per-view, which we'll talk about momentarily, it's still business as usual. We're still doing the two-man power trip. We're still doing, Triple H and Steve Austin feuding with Kane and The Undertaker. But what's happening a little by little on TV is we're starting to pepper in the Natural Born Thrillers. We're starting to pepper in some of the old WCW guys.
The Radicals.
The Radicals. This is all kind of happening in the background, and what's percolating, we don't know it at the time, but what's percolating is the invasion angle. They're starting to. This is kind of like early 1930s before World War II. We're slow.
We see the rumblings.
Yeah, we're like, Germany's kind of looking around. We're we don't really have an army. We have a police force. So, it's all kind of happening, but in hindsight, you see it, but you don't see it when you're watching on TV. The focus is Steve Austin, Triple H, Undertaker, and Kane while all this is happening. So at Judgment Day, which was May 20th, 2001 in Sacramento, your main matches of note are you've got Steve Austin defeating The Undertaker in a no-holds-barred match. You have Benoit and Jericho, who win a tag team turmoil against a whole bunch of different teams, and Edge and Christian. We have Kane defeating Triple H with in a chain match. Jesus Christ. And then you have Kurt Angle in his ongoing feud with Chris Benoit. 2 out of 3 falls match for Angle's Olympic gold medals. I said to Pat, one of my favorite matches of all time is Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. And he was like, that's not even the best match of their series. And I was like, okay. He's like, apparently they had a whole bunch before and after WrestleMania that are, just as good, if not better. So I don't know. Do you have an opinion on the Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit matches?
Oh, dude. Yeah, definitely. Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle, or do we call him the wrestler formerly known as Chris Benoit?
No, I don't know how that goes. People go crazy and sometimes do bad things. It's like, it's fun to talk about him.
But the way they looked back and forth. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's trained in the dungeon and one guy who's trained, Olympic gold medalist, and the two of them just counteracted each other. It's like they knew how to read each other without even movement, without even saying, "Hey, next move's this," like you hear in a John Cena match. But they actually
armbar.
Whisper,
John. Armbar.
One of my favorite pro wrestlers of all time was Benoit before the incident or whatever. And just, I saw them, I think, in two different incidences. I think one was a SmackDown and one was a Raw, where I got to see them live. And it was just like, it was usually when I go to a wrestling event, you know, I'm that guy that's like, yeah, woo, let's do this, da da da. But the whole time watching them, I was just like,
yeah. We used to have raucous parties for WrestleMania. I used to have a lot of friends come over. I would go to somebody else's house and we'd hoot and holler and we'd yell chicanery and tomfoolery, literally. To the point where one of my friends was like, "Who's this tomfoolery guy?" And we had to throw him out. He had to leave the room. But I remember shushing everyone during WrestleMania 17, Angle versus Benoit. Like, you know, I wrestled in high school, and I've always been, you know, before I got old and fat. I'm very like, you know, competitive combat sports person, and like the thing I liked about Davey Boy and Owen in Germany for the European title, or Regal and Finlay, or I think it was Regal and Ultimo Dragon, and then Angle and Benoit, is when you can make it look, you know, or even like Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle in their lockdown match, like when you make it look legit. When you really make it look legit, like it's a real struggle, a real wrestling match, the way a wrestling match should look. When you take me back to, you know, George Hackenschmidt and, you know, Frank Gotch and shit like that, like that's what I'm into it. I know a lot of people, you know, they just want to see light bulbs get smashed over people's heads and fall off buildings.
Yeah.
But like me, I like when wrestling looks like wrestling.
Yeah.
King of the Ring 2001. June 24th in East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Continental Airlines Arena. Okay, nobody remembers anything about this except for one thing, because they use the footage of this constantly. This is forever. This is King of the Ring, known for its really wacky spots that make it like a one-spot show or a one-match show. Jesus Christ, this is the night that Kurt Angle nearly killed Shane McMahon.
Yes. Oh my God, the glass entrance. Yeah. Break. One of them wasn't breakaway glass, so like it was supposed to be or something like that. I can't remember.
He fucking hard way.
But yeah, he starts and just like keeps throwing them through it, like just keeps trying.
No, trying. No, it's not the right glass, Kurt. Wow.
Who cares? You're going through it, bro.
Kurt's like, I broken freaking neck, man.
Oh my god,
that was rough, man. Like I think everybody was rooting against Shane McMahon until that happened, and everyone was like, "Oh, come call an ambulance."
One of the most cringy things I ever seen in my life. One of the only things that just still to this day makes me go, "Oh God, why?"
Yeah, that was a like I like wrestling and, you know, hardcore matches too, but yikes! Don't kill the man. They had to have a talk with him after the pay-per-view. They're like, Kurt, you got to throw him through the right glass, buddy. This is how Goldberg almost lost an arm. You can't be throwing him through non-worked glass.
Right.
But the other thing that happened on this one, this is where DDP shows up, right? Or
if I remember when he was the like weird guy with the black mask on, am I correct?
Yeah, I feel like this is the okay. At one point, both Jericho and Benoit forced Austin to submit to the walls of Jericho and the lacrosse face at the same time. However, since there could only be one winner, the match continued. The WCW champion Booker T made his WWF debut and attacked Austin with a scissor kick. That's right. That's what happened here. And a sidewalk slam through an announce table. Benoit would follow by executing a back suplex off the top rope on Jericho, which legitimately broke Benoit's neck. Yikes. And then Austin crawled over to Benoit and pinned him to retain the WWF championship. I thought that DDP was on this show with The Undertaker. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe that wasn't yet. I think that was actually after.
Okay.
Because at WrestleMania 18, he was a smiling guy.
Right.
Right.
The initial thing with DDP, which if it's okay, here it is. Before the street fight between Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon occurred, Diamond Dallas Page invited The Undertaker to the ring as videos of DDP's personal life were being aired by Undertaker's wife, Sarah, throughout the event. Undertaker and DDP had a confrontation, which quickly turned into a brawl. So, okay, I was right about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So let's go talk about this, because this is, again, we're leading into the invasion. You know, we had Booker T on this show. Before this, DDP was the stalker. He was stalking Undertaker's wife, Sarah, and this is going to lead to a match between the two, but they have a confrontation here at the show. I don't think anybody on Earth liked the DDP stalker thing or his interactions with the Undertaker here. This was all bad.
It was all incredibly bad. And it was like one of the things that I was just like, I cannot believe this is what they're doing. It's like from Godfather, oh, look what they done to my boy. It's like, because I was a huge, I was one of those guys that, in the late 90s when Stone Cold and DDP were being kind of like compared to and stuff, like, they're kind of like the same guy at the trailer court that hang out and drink the beers and stuff like that. I was a big DDP fan. And when they brought him in like this, I was just like, why? You just took everything away from him that made him the character that he was.
We're not that many years from Savage DDP Spring Stampede. Like, it's not that long ago where he was at the height of his powers, the top of his game. He had the title for a while. It was him and Goldberg at that ridiculous Halloween Havoc with the Ultimate Warrior. That show. Like, that wasn't that long ago. He's still DDP and Booker T were both main event guys that should have immediately come in and been a part of the main event picture. Like, DDP and Booker T, if you don't have anyone else, should have been leading the invasion on the other side. You didn't need Austin. And instead, and this is a pattern with the WWE. We've been looking at 20 years of WrestleManias. This is a 20-year pattern with this company. You bring in Dusty Rhodes. Dusty, it'll be fine. You don't have to be Booker. You don't have to be the NWA guy. Here, put on these polka dot trunks. They bring in Kerry Von Erich. We understand you only have one foot. What if we spin you around once or twice? You call yourself the Texas Tornado. Hey, Chicken McFace.
Terry Rooster. The Red Rooster.
Red
Rooster.
We're
talking about Terry.
Hey, you have some upside to you. You're a good-looking man, a nice body. The girls dig you. What if you cluck like a chicken?
It's like hey, you're big and white and bald. Maybe we should make you from South Africa and call you Akeem.
I understand you were in Mid-South as the one-man gang because you're a big, fat, bearded white guy. But what if you're a jive-talking black guy instead?
There's so many questionable characters over the decades.
So much questionable. It's they bring a guy over, they promise him the world, and then they treat him like crap. And they give him garbage.
They still do that to this day. To this day. Karrion Kross, Keith Lee. Who can I think of right now off the top of my head in the last year that are now usually at AEW?
No, that's a brilliant point. Like, you're not. I had forgot. God, because I don't watch the product as much as everyone else does these days. I forgot about that. But hey, Killer Kross, what if you're named after a bird? Hey, hear me out. You're going to be Karrion Kross now. And your hot wife that everyone likes to see when you guys come out. Let's take her out of the picture. And here, put on Demolition's old gear. This will be fine.
I don't know if it's Demolition. I think it was the guy from Thunderdome. From Max
Lord Humongous. Hey, Keith Lee, I know you're known from the Battle of Los Angeles for jumping over the top rope and being as big as you are. Yeah. Hear me out on this. Tennis skirt. What do you think?
And we're gonna take away your music, and we're gonna call you Bearcat, because they're
right.
Yeah.
So here we are in the early 2000s doing the thing they've always done and will continue to do for the next 20 years.
Yes. Well, anyway. At least the next 2 years until Vince McMahon retires.
He's never gonna retire. We're gonna be stuck with him forever.
They're gonna put him in the nursing home sooner or later.
All right, so this is the big one. Back in Cleveland, Ohio, July 22nd. We need to just talk about a couple of different things that happened between the invasion and now. Where we are at the end of King of the Ring and the invasion in July. I want to say this has to have been the night that ECW reforms, right? Between June and July is the night that all the ECW guys rushed the ring and turned on Jericho and Kane.
Yes, if I remember correctly.
So yeah, I don't know about you, but those pair of pants I was wearing needed to be tossed out when that happened. Like, listen, had a lot of sex in my life, but I never quite finished the way I did when Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer showed up.
Came out. The deep nut.
Oh my God. My friend and I were just like passively watching wrestling. Like we're talking about this crap invasion. We have Mike Awesome who shows up on Raw one night and throws somebody a beating. We have Lance Storm who does the same. We're starting to get, I think between now and then they also did the Buff Bagwell Booker T match. Is that right?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Aborted the night that they stopped Raw early and reset as WCW, and it was an utter disaster.
Yes, I totally forgot about that until you just now brought that up. Yes, now I totally remember. They used WCW referees. They used WCW cameras.
The commentators
got changed. I totally forgot that they did that.
The commentators were the one guy whose name I don't remember, in Arn Anderson, who, look, I love Arn to death. Not needing to be a commentator. Yikes.
No. He's great as a coach.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, Buff and Booker T did not mesh, and that match was hot garbage, and the whole thing just fell flat. And they were like, "All right, so maybe we're not going to do a WCW branded show." So
maybe this ain't going to work.
Yeah, it's like well, we tried once for 5 minutes, it didn't work, so we're just doing away with it. And then I think between June and July is Austin turns on the WWE. Like they put him at this point. Once the alliance formed the night of the ECW invasion, because at the end of that show, Stephanie walks out, and I feel like within a week or two of that, Austin joins the alliance. If I remember,
because Austin comes out because the whole time him and Kurt Angle are doing the comedy sketches with Vince McMahon backstage.
Yes,
and all of a sudden, McMahon's like, hey, with this invasion, I need the old Stone Cold back. I need the old Stone Cold.
Yes, and Austin cried and was like, no, I don't want to go back to being. And then he joins the invasion.
And then, first he comes out and he stuns everybody. He stuns all of WCW, all of ECW one night. And then it was like a week later or whatever, like he turns on everybody and stuff like that. So, originally he was going to be the hero for WWF. And he's like, no. I like WCW better because I like being stunning Steve Austin and the Hollywood Blondes.
It was all bad. It's all bad.
But he did have good matches with Steamboat in WCW.
Sure. We're watching week after week of Raw, the shitty invasion, the shitty WCW night. All of it's bad. And then, we're watching, I think it's the Dudleys versus Jericho and Kane. And then Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer jump the aisle. We're like, and so again, 2001, we're on the edge of our seat. We're like, oh my God, Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer are here. What's going to happen now? And all these guys run down and now we've got a brawl, and everybody kind of like in lockstep turns in one direction on Jericho and Kane and beats the fuck out of them. Oh! Loved it. We were thought my friend John and I had won the lottery or something.
You just won a big $1 million prize.
We were screaming, dude. We were so happy. Like, yes. And then Stephanie walks out at the end of the show and she's like, I'm in charge of ECW. And we're like, all right, good. That lasted all of 20 minutes.
Hey, but you had let the bodies hit the floor.
Sure. All right. All of that to say that leads to Invasion. Once again, July 22nd, 2001. I was at this one. We took a drive from New York to Cleveland to go see this. Was
this at the Gun Arena too?
This was, at the Gun.
Yep.
All right.
Man.
So I'm going to rip. So you mentioned it before, and I'm going to take an opportunity here to just run through the entire card here just to show people, when you think about Sting versus The Undertaker, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, when you think about the dream WCW, WWE
Booker T versus The Rock.
We finally have it. This is it. This is the WCW, WWF pay-per-view that we've always wanted. Or is it?
Never. It was not.
In our opening match, we have Chavo versus Scotty 2 Hotty.
I mean, yeah, that's I was like, man, Scotty 2 Hotty has to go against Chavo Guerrero at some point in my life.
Yep, and his hobby horse. Edge and Christian versus Lance Storm and Mike Awesome. Good old Team Canada there. The aforementioned Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick. It's just
special referee Mick Foley.
Yeah. The EA of Bradshaw and Farouk versus the Natural Born Thrillers, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare. You know, those main WCW main event stars.
Yeah, they broke up within a month after this, I think it was.
Roughly. Billy Kidman, who in the latter years of WCW looked like he was on meth, versus
he was in a boy group. What can you say?
Versus X-Pac. And you have Raven versus Regal, which you could have seen on WCW Saturday Night at any given year.
Yeah.
And then you have Chris Kanyon. Who better than Kanyon, Neil? Who better than Kanyon?
Nobody. Nobody's better than Kanyon.
Goddamn right. Hugh Morris. Who was he General Erection?
I think he was at one point. Yeah. Not during this era, but
I wish he had kept that name. I wish he had kept that name, but because I'm juvenile. Chris Kanyon, General Erection, and Sean Stasiak. Yikes.
From Planet Stasiak.
Yes. Meat.
Meat.
Such an awesome gimmick. Awfully bad. Albert, Big Show, and Billy Gunn, who I'm sure looks good to you. Tajiri.
Ass boys. Yep.
That's right. Tajiri versus Taz. Rob Van Dam versus Jeff Hardy in the only decent match on this entire show.
Actually, the Tajiri versus Taz one was actually kind of good too. But they wrestle each other in WCW, ECW so many times.
I'm not just quality, but I mean like in star power. Like
star power, right?
There might have been like well wrestled matches here. I honestly don't remember. But Rob Van Dam versus Jeff Hardy in the hardcore match for the title was A, quality, B, star quality. That's what I'm saying.
Star quality wise, Taz and Tajiri, nobody probably remembers half their names. Right. And they only think Taz is a commentator.
Right. So, and then you have Trish Stratus and Lita versus Tori Wilson, Stacy Keibler in a bra and panties tag team match with special guest referee Mick Foley. Oh boy.
Wait till we talk about WrestleMania 19. Anyway.
All right. And finally, Chris Bailey. The alliance of Booker T, Bubba Ray Dudley, Diamond Dallas Page, Devon Dudley, and Rhino. 2 WCW guys, an ECW tag team that's already been in the company for like 5 years, and Rhino versus Oi.
This is where Austin turns on him. This is Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Kane, and Chris Jericho.
And that's why the alliance wins the match. It's Jericho, Kane, Kurt Angle, Steve Austin, the Undertaker. Just awful.
It was like one of the worst tag matches ever. I mean, you didn't even get the hot spots weren't even that good in this match. It was just kind of like, okay. All right. And then when I think this is the one where Austin turns at the end. Because they were like the whole time they thought it was either Chris Jericho or Kurt Angle that was going to turn. And it was the whole time the team leader.
All right. So that takes us to SummerSlam 2001 from San Jose at the Compaq Center. And your main event here, you have The Rock, who's back, and he defeats Booker T. Poor Hall of Famer Booker T, who
never gets anything.
Well, until he's King Booker, it's just one shit show after another, like moderately racist shit show after another. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to WrestleMania 19, but you people don't finish matches or whatever the hell it is Triple H said. Have you heard, by the way, Bruce Pritchard defend the "you people" comment that Triple H made?
Yeah.
It's like, you people, with the nappy hair. What? Like, please just say you were being racist and be done with this. Just admit you thought it'd be good if Triple H kind of comes across like a Nazi. It's fine. We'll forgive just about anything. We're wrestling fans, but please be honest.
We forgave the Katie Vick thing. What more do you want? Like just the mentioning of Katie Vick gets people like this every time. Like anytime someone's like, "This is the worst storyline ever," I just look at him and go, "Katie Vick."
I just screwed your brains out. I gotta know how many takes he took. How many? Like, I can't do this, Vince. You gotta
like
do
The
it,
Rock.
pal.
No, he was like The Rock with the Tech Nine song. It only took one take.
I'm willing to bet that's what he said before they shot it. He was like, I am doing this once, however it sounds, as long as I get the line out, we're doing it because I ain't doing it again.
I'm sure he actually loved the idea because they thought this was a great idea until they.
What if he ad-libbed it? Can you imagine? What if he was just supposed to hump a corpse, right? Because that's fine. Just leave it at humping a corpse, but then he, and the line was just good or something, and he's like, "I'm gonna ad lib this. I'm gonna throw my own little Triple H stank on it.
Yay!"
Yeah, and he's like, "I just screwed your brains out." Yeah, and everyone's just looking around, going, "Do we tell him?" No, he's fucking the boss's daughter.
How cringy this is.
Just air it'll be fine.
Where are we at? SummerSlam.
Anywho, so yeah, we have The Rock who speaking of screwing someone's brains out, defeats Booker T in what's going to be a long run of losses. Kurt Angle defeats Steve Austin by disqualification. The Brothers of Destruction defeat Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Kanyon, speaking of long string of losses. Yeah. Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy again with one of the best matches of the night. Their ladder match is fucking legendary. And then the rest of this is a big who gives a crap. So that's SummerSlam. Unforgiven 2001. We are gearing up for we are now at the other side of the invasion. We're gearing up towards the end here as we get into the fall. Your major feud is still Kurt Angle and Steve Austin. They're at the top of the card. Kurt Angle defeats Steve Austin by submission for the WWF Championship.
That's when they all came out and cheered him and put him on his shoulders and like, "Yay, you did it, Kurt!"
Yep. And then in the only other match that anyone would care about, though I do want to mention one other one, The Rock defeats Booker T yet again in a handicap match, and Shane McMahon for the WCW Championship. The Brothers of Destruction, and I don't think I saw this one but I've heard about it. I've heard the legend, and I need you to kind of fill me in here. The Brothers of Destruction defeat Chronic of Brian Adams and Brian Clark. I heard this was a special kind of burial. You want to clue me in?
If I remember correctly, this was actually Chronic came and they were like really bad backstage. Like they were not getting along with anybody.
Was this like a Public Enemy deal where they just came backstage so they were big time shit and they got put in place? Okay.
Because they came from WCW, like they were on a hiatus when they came when WCW went out.
Okay.
And they were just not hiatus, but they were on a high horse. Right. And they were just like, they had these ultimate personalities where their stuff just didn't stink. And so the first thing Vince thought to do was he brought good old Mark Calloway to the side and said, "Those guys need a lesson." And Undertaker said, "I'll be more than happy to give them that lesson." And there was a lot of receipts. This was not a very nice match. Like I really feel like they put Steven Richards in there just in case they killed the two guys. They had a guy to pick. That's what I remember of it. I remember that because Chronic, I think after this, this was like their last thing they ever did. I think they were in there for like maybe another month, and then they just got rid of them.
Brian Adams was crushed. Like he had a long run with the WWE. Like even during the Attitude Era, he was part of the DOA and the first thing that he was in.
Nation.
The Nation, yeah. He was in the Nation and then he was in DOA. Like he was a big deal in the WWF. Not like a main event guy, but like it's not like
he did a lot. He did a lot of background stuff, a lot of matches that you're like, okay, I'm kind of interested in this.
And then Brian Clark was Adam Bomb. So it's this is one of the things I really dislike about the WWF as a company. It's always this kind of carny, cultish atmosphere. And I've said this on a bunch of different podcasts. It really bugs me because here's the thing. An adult should have just gone to them and said, remember where you are and there's nowhere else to go. Please rein it in. And if they can't rein it in, then sure, take them out back and beat them to death. I get it. But
because I remember like right after this, I think it was like 2 or 3 months after this is when TNA was starting to go. And, you know, when young AJ Styles, young Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and such like that. And I remember they popped over to TNA and they were in TNA for a little while. And then they just completely disappeared off the map.
Yeah, I just feel like an adult that goes to them and says, please mind your manners. Remember where you are. You can't act like this. And maybe, like, again, Brian Clark has been there before. Brian Adams, rather. Brian Adams has been there before. Like, he should know what the deal is. Like, oh, right, I forgot where I worked. Got it.
Yeah. And again, when you got, like, someone like The Undertaker, which
step
is considered...
1 isn't beat them to death.
Yeah.
That's step 5.
And then when you got like somebody like The Undertaker coming up to you, which we all know since pretty much 1995 has been like the right-hand man of Vince McMahon. If he's coming up to you, I mean, he's the judge in wrestling court.
He's Darth Vader, for God's sake.
Yeah. It's like when he comes up to you and says, hey, man, maybe we need to calm that down a bit. Right. That's when you're like, you're right. I need to calm that down a bit.
You're absolutely right, Mark. I don't know what I was thinking.
Please don't kill me.
Yeah, like just like what Vince McMahon should have said to Taker was go have a talk with them, and then he comes over and he's like, cut the shit. I think they do. I think they're all men. I think they're all adult men. They would have gotten themselves together. But for Vince to be like, step 1, go beat the shit out of them in the ring and make them go home. Like, I don't know. Feels like you skipped a step or two. Anywho,
just maybe one.
So that's Unforgiven. We go to No Mercy in October 21st in St. Louis at the Savvis Center. And your main event is Stone Cold Steve Austin again defeating Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam. Chris Jericho defeats The Rock for the WCW Championship. The Undertaker defeats Booker T. Take a drink every time I say someone beats Booker T.
You'll be drunken within 10 minutes.
I was going to say he will have liver damage. And that's that. And at this point, we are done with this whole thing. We are. The only thing I'm going to say about going into the Survivor Series is, to this day, Paul Heyman's promo where he calls out Vince is one of my favorite moments in wrestling. Like, as
ECW hardcore, like where he just comes out and he's just like,
stole everything from me, Vince. And I hope your kids hate you, and I hope you die. That whole promo, I have, like I've done like acting classes, writing classes, and stuff, and I've had to do monologues. I've done that monologue. That is a well-written, like, my daughter is now in musical theater, and I've had to kind of sit with her and be like, you have to work on elocution. You have to work on enunciation, about, pacing how you speak. And I was like, hey, if because she's had to do monologues too. She's always like, I want to get bigger parts. I always get these small roles. And I'm like, you gotta do a better audition. And so I was like, what a good monologue to look at to model yourself after? Paul Heyman's. Paul Heyman didn't just do a promo. He told a story.
No. Every time. Oh, like I was just recently at a SmackDown where I was front row and I was right there and got to see Heyman just go off on the clips. And not only that, but even after the show, he did. There was a tag match with the Roman Reigns and the Usos and stuff where he did this whole promo, and he even made the crowd act like he was yelling at this one guy, and he was like making it look like he's going to go after and beat him up, and like running towards the barrier, and like Roman Reigns is holding him back, like he's actually going to go fight a guy or whatever. But it just some of the best promo work in history. If you don't put Paul Heyman in the top 10, top 5 even.
This is his best work ever. Like, I don't think it gets any better than this promo against Vince, where he talks about, like, you took this person's smile and you bought a jet with it, and you took this from Bret Hart and you went public with it, and I don't even care that you stole from Sam Mushnick. You stole from me, Vince. You think you've got attitude? You've got nothing, pal. Every good idea you've ever had, you took from someone else. And now I've taken something from you. I've taken your children. They hate you. They want you dead. And this Sunday at the Survivor Series, that's what's going to happen. It's a crap ending because he calls out Taz and he's like, "You turned Taz. He was a killer, and now he's a fat commentator." And it's like,
poor Taz.
We couldn't just let him go out on a high note. We couldn't give Paul anything. He has to lose his heat by the end of that segment. So, Taz comes out and chokes him out, or whatever. And and then of course there's Vince in only the second stupidest line since "I screwed your brains out." "At the Survivor Series, pal, you're gonna choke." So bad.
Oh god.
We can't give Paul Heyman anything. He had to lose his heat by the end of that segment. But up to that point, it was my favorite moment of other than the night ECW invaded. It was my favorite my favorite moment of the entire invasion, which I think is both like an indictment of the invasion and, and also it's just so they had it. It shows that when the best thing that come out of the invasion was that promo, just shows you how bad the whole thing really was and how and just how they could not get out of their own way. Something I wanted to ask you really quick is, people have talked about in shoot interviews that part of the reason why the invasion angle went the way that it did is in the WWE, they had this sort of philosophical religious belief. They couldn't let WCW ever win. They beat them in the Monday Night Wars. So how do you let the guys who you just beat for the last 2 years win anything? Now, I know how I feel about that and how stupid it sounds at me repeating it coming out of my mouth, but I wanted to get your take on it.
My take is the only reason, WCW did beat them for 18 weeks or whatever that
83
was.
weeks.
83 weeks.
83 weeks. That's the name of the podcast.
And so, like, by any means, WCW did beat WW at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Kevin Nash, said it best when someone's like, Eric Bischoff's like, "Oh, man, we're going to put Vince McMahon out of business with this," talking about the NWO when they started. He goes, "Wait a minute. You do realize that 2 of his guys are believable enough to be taking over your entire company."
Right.
Just 2 of his guys.
With bats.
Yeah, with bats, which one of them was fake. But my thing is, I think they should have really annihilated WWE or WWF, whatever it was at the time, with the Alliance. I think the Alliance members should have got every title and made them seem like a genuine threat. Because to be honest, when do we kill this? We kill this literally 3 months before WrestleMania and start a whole new line. This is I think the first year of WrestleMania where the story wasn't all the way back at Survivor Series and on.
Right.
What in Survivor Series, you're talking Austin was the champion. You're talking he was the belt. Where is he at WrestleMania 18? So far down the card, I bet you don't even remember who he wrestled if you're not a big wrestling fan.
Right.
I really think the Alliance should have won more just because I think if they would have survived the Alliance beating WWF a little bit more, and then they had that big win at, say Survivor Series, or then 2 months later, you have the NWO coming in when he gets that lethal injection of the NWO into the system. I think then you could still continue that Alliance thing because literally it's only 2 pay-per-views before WrestleMania where they're no longer calling them Alliance members or calling them, WWF guys. So my thought was always that I thought the Alliance should win more just so the WrestleMania blow off or payoff could have been bigger.
If they really felt if there's a conversation among the leadership, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, et cetera, that we can't let the Alliance ever win, it's not believable. I feel like they're brain damaged. There's no other explanation for it. It's a fiction. It's a work. It's all a work. And
really, not believable. The Boogeyman.
Yeah, I know. The gobbledygooker. I don't understand. So that's my point. You think you're trying to make it believable, and you sacrifice appropriate storytelling. It's we can't ever let the Rebel Alliance win. It's a ragtag group of unorganized fighters and Luke Skywalker's a farm boy who barely knows how to use the Force. There's no way we can let him win, right? Well, if you don't have a fucking movie, is the point.
You don't have a sequel either.
Right. Like, well, it wasn't believable that he could blow up the Death Star, so he died. Star Wars, everybody.
Popcorn.
Yeah, moving on.
Water people can't do this. Freaking water formers. Anyway.
So we finally get to the Survivor Series. This is the end of the invasion. It goes off with a whimper, not exactly a bang. I'll read through the whole card here because this was yet another like Alliance versus the WWF, the last hurrah. We have Just Incredible, Lance Storm, and Raven versus Albert, Scotty 2 Hotty, and Spike Dudley. We have Christian, who defeats Al Snow. William Regal defeats Tajiri. Edge defeats Test. Yikes. The Dudley Boys defeat the Hardy Boys. Test wins an immunity battle royal by last eliminating Billy Gunn. Trish Stratus defeats Ivory, Jazz, Jacqueline, Lita, and Molly Holly. And then finally, we have Team WWF, The Rock, Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, Kane, and Big Show. Just fine. No argument there. Versus The Alliance, Stone Cold, who's a WWF guy, Kurt Angle, WWF guy, Rob Van Dam, ECW, Booker T, hasn't won a match in 12 years, and Shane fucking McMahon.
WCW.
One WCW guy in Team WCW.
I mean, I guess you could argue Stone Cold, but I mean, like, Stone Cold was nothing Steve Austin, and how many years had complained about him getting fired by a fax by Eric Bischoff?
Like FedEx. Yeah, I had forgotten how bad this was. Steve Austin, no. Kurt Angle, no. Rob Van Dam, okay. Booker T, one. And Shane fucking McMahon.
Yeah, you could have snagged, like, let's see, who do we have up here? We could have snagged Lance Storm, who by any means is as much as he never gets credit, is one of the best workers of that era, where he can put anybody over and make it look believable. You have so many people like Sean. You could have thrown Sean Stasiak in there. You could have thrown,
was DDP dead by this point? I mean, we did.
Yeah, where was DDP?
Like,
DDP's
injured
around.
Was he getting his teeth?
I think he actually, if I remember correctly, he actually had like a small shoulder injury or something like that.
What would have been fun, since who shows up the next night, I think it is? Ric Flair.
Yeah, Ric Flair.
What if we had like a mystery opponent and out walks Ric Flair and everyone's pants come off? It would have been great.
It's built like a hammer. Anyway,
it's a baby arm.
Baby arm.
Oh, Ric Flair's penis. Anyway,
moving
on. So this next one is Vengeance in December 9th, 2001 in San Diego at the San Diego Sports Arena. And the only thing of note here is this is the big Jericho push. He wins the mini tournament for the unified, undisputed WWF Championship by beating Steve Austin. And
The Rock in the same night.
He sure did, Ollie. And so this is Chris Jericho's march to WrestleMania. This is where they begin his feud with Triple H. This is where, if I remember correctly,
I mean, next month is
this is the beginning of that. So where the landing point is going to be the return of Triple H from his quad injury and his run towards the title. This is Jericho teaming up with Stephanie McMahon, all of that. That's storyline 1 going into WrestleMania 18.
$2 bottom. Anyway.
So Triple H wins Triple H, it's a beautiful day, don't you understand? He wins the Royal Rumble. I will never get that fucking song out of my head because of this. They played that so much.
It's a beautiful day.
I think I was at the Raw that he came back, and look, everyone gives Triple H a lot of crap. By the way, this is January 20th in Atlanta, Georgia for the Royal Rumble. Moving on. Everyone gives Triple H a lot of crap. He married the boss's daughter. He's never as good as he thinks he is. Yada, yada, yada. People were legitimately happy he came back.
Oh, dude, yeah, I cried at home. I was like watching it at home, and like all episode, they even set it up. Well, at the end, Triple H will be here. It wasn't even a surprise, and then he came out, and I was like, "Oh my God, Triple H!
I missed you. Please don't tear your quad again."
Please, what she do a year later? Anyway.
Yep. All right, that takes us to No Way Out, and the storyline here is that so right after the Survivor Series, Ric Flair showed up. They did the whole thing where he owned like 50% of the company. They're doing a storyline where they have to like share ownership or whatever. And Vince McMahon's like, I don't share. He'll never be polyamorous. He won't share. So instead, he'll just kill the company. And so he hires the NWO to inject a lethal dose of poison and kill the company, because that's what the NWO did. They killed the company. Sure. History is written by the victors. So No Way Out is the return of the NWO. Hogan, Scott Hall, the late Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. This is where at No Way Out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on February 17th, the main event is Jericho, who defeats Steve Austin again. Kurt Angle defeats Triple H. The Rock defeats The Undertaker. Somewhere around here, the DDP's back. And somewhere around here is the NWO. Yeah, okay. Moving on. So that finally brings us to WrestleMania 18 at the Toronto Sky Dome. Not since WrestleMania 6 have they been there. And the main event that should have been was Hogan versus The Rock, the NWO versus the WWF. Don't you understand?
Or this is where I'm going to jump in for a second, because
sure.
I don't think that match should have ever happened. Even though it was a great match, and don't get me that wrong or anything like that.
Even Jim Cornette liked it.
Yeah. It's a good match, and by any means, that's not what I'm saying. The thing is, where was The Rock during the last pay-per-view? 30 days earlier, He was wrestling Undertaker in a match, regular match, nothing to do with anything. Right. The NWO comes out and makes it so Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't win the title. Why isn't Stone Cold Steve Austin going against the leader of the NWO? I mean, instead only gets like the leftovers.
So I feel like Bruce Pritchard addressed this at one point, and either they offered it to they offered it to Steve Austin, and I want to say, because Steve Austin's going to leave the company, he's going to take his ball and go home shortly.
Yeah,
he is not having a good time. I have the sneaking suspicion this is where there was stuff happening, I think, with Deborah. There was domestic violence going on in his world. I think he had been drinking a lot. I don't quite remember where the bookends are, where his mental health just completely deteriorates. But I feel like this is right smack in the middle of that. Relative to your point, I believe they offered it to Steve Austin. He was like, no, Hogan was mean to me in WCW, so I won't wrestle him. And they were like, well, fuck off then. Rock, you want it? And he was like, yeah, I'll take anything you give me. Scorpion King 5, let's do it. So the Rock will take anything. And so they're like, yeah, I'll wrestle Hogan. That sounds great. And there's Steve Austin, who's cutting off his nose to spite his face.
Yeah. So I just remember as a kid, not a kid, I guess I was in my 20s. But I guess that makes me a kid now compared to anyway. So 21 years ago, I just remember being so upset about that when it came out, and it's like Rock and Hogan. And I'm like, but what about Stone Cold? I want to see him get stunned. But anyway, let's move on to WrestleMania 18, because I was actually a big fan of WrestleMania 18.
They heard you, Neil, and they made up for it. So instead, you get Steve Austin versus Kevin Owens in a talk show.
Yes.
Anyway,
I'll be there to watch it.
All right, so we're finally at the point where we get to talk about WrestleMania. So here we go. We have Rikishi, Scotty 2 Hotty, and Albert. They defeat Mr. Perfect, Lance Storm, and Test in a 6-man tag.
I was so excited to see Mr. Perfect when he came out at WrestleMania, with that music, and I was like, yes, Mr. Perfect! And then they buried him under an ass. And I was just so upset. I was like, why did they do that to Kurt Hennig? What did he do?
All right. In the first match of the pay-per-view proper, we have Rob Van Dam versus William Regal. Look, every William Regal match I've ever seen has been fantastic.
And that one was just as well. That is one of my favorite actual William Regal matches in WWF was that match.
For sure. Like when they would just leave Regal alone and stop giving him goofy gimmicks and just let him wrestle. Like Triple H is the one that everyone says, oh, he could wrestle a mop and put on a 5-star classic in the Tokyo Dome. Like, no. William Regal can wrestle a mop and make it look like a struggle in an actual wrestling match. William Regal is one of the best. And his match, and Rob Van Dam, who's known for kicking chairs into people's faces and doing splits and whatnot, can actually wrestle when he needs to. That's like just not his thing. He'd rather be the flippy martial arts guy.
Right.
Next match, we have Diamond Dallas Page defeating Christian when Christian was doing his tantrum gimmick, and Diamond Dallas Page is now the teeth whitened motivational speaker guy.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
This was fine. They're both competent wrestlers.
It was a decent match, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, none of the work here is bad.
No.
The work is either average to good to great throughout the entire card. If you liked the DDP Christian angle, this match was just fine. If you didn't, it was a match on the card.
Yeah. I guess like the 4th best match or 5th best match of the night. Yeah.
And then we have our requisite silly match of the evening. The hardcore match between Maven. So I missed my opportunity to talk about this before, so I'm going to say it now. Was this the Royal Rumble where Maven went into the popcorn machine?
Yes, it was.
That's why he eliminated The Undertaker, and The Undertaker went plumb crazy.
Yeah. And this match was literally easily, I mean, it's like what they do now with the 24/7 title, because this runs off, people go after each other. We get to watch it on the screen, when it's time to go get the popcorn and get them, get the beers and come back to your seat kind of the night. So not a good match. Maven, the only thing I can ever say about Maven was that he had a really good drop kick. Like his drop kicks looked beautiful, but the rest of his thing always, I've never seen a Maven match and was happy I saw it.
Yeah, I feel like just that era of Tough Enough, we can talk about this for a second. Of all the people that they could have picked, I thought Maven, I don't remember me disagreeing with the Maven choice as such. I mean, there might have been one other person who I thought was better. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the guy from Harvard. That was that season. And I actually did think the guy from Harvard should have won.
Chris Nowacki.
Which they ended up giving a contract to anyway, then proceeded to give him concussions. But like, I think that was my only argument at the time. Like, I would have preferred Chris Nowinski to Maven, but whatever. And then they bring in Maven, and they realize that he's 3 feet tall, and they don't have a cruiserweight division anymore. So this is not going to work. And then they proceed to have the Undertaker kill him. But I take a drink every time I say, and they proceeded to let the Undertaker kill him.
You're just trying to get everybody messed up this night.
I am the king of alcohol poisoning. Kurt Angle defeats Kane in a singles match. This is yet another year in a row where they don't know what to do with Kane.
Or Kurt. Like literally, I mean, it was just like, here's Kurt, here's Kane, fight.
Yep, pretty much. They just threw them together. And look, but both guys can work. Again, this is, if you liked the angle that they were in at the time and you like those guys as wrestlers, this is a fine match.
Yes.
Okay. In one of the matches that actually matters on this show, The Undertaker defeats Ric Flair. So I know, I wish Pat were here because Pat would tell you how much The Undertaker sucks. But he's not a huge fan.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. Hot take from Pat Mullen. Him and another guy that I'm in a wrestling chat with have had long, breathy discussions about how much they hate The Undertaker and how bad the wrestler is.
You totally have to add me to this group, man. I'll rip them apart on that.
You have to pick a character name from the movie Boogie Nights if you want to be in.
Nice, definitely. I guess Dirk Diggler's already taken.
It is. I'll tell you. Hang on. I'm gonna do this live on the show. Let's see. Boogie Nights. Here we go. So we have.
I can be Skater Girl.
We have
Roller Girl. That's it.
Okay. We have Scotty J, Jack Horner, Todd Parker, Buck Swole, Reed Rothschild, Dirk Diggler, and I'm the Colonel.
I can be Roller Girl.
Roller Girl. Okay.
That really confused them.
I'll head you later.
But anyway, so the Ric Flair Undertaker match to me, I think is the unsung gem of this WrestleMania. Like, a lot of people don't remember it. Like, this is a conversation I got to have with so many people about WrestleMania 18. And I rank this as actually the second best match of the entire night.
I really like this match. Like, for all the shit that Pat and company give The Undertaker, and look, I somewhat agree with their point of view. I don't think all of his matches are spectacular. I think he works to the level of the guy he's in the ring with, is my thing with The Undertaker.
Yeah.
But when you put him in there with Giant Gonzalez, sure. The matches suck.
Of course it's going to be. I mean, this was a time when Ric Flair's, his confidence in himself was still pretty low, he was still trying to rebuild himself mentally.
The thing people don't understand about Ric Flair, because everyone says, "Oh, Ric Flair's a great wrestler." Ric Flair's a great bumper. Ric Flair's a great seller. The thing that makes Ric Flair great is he makes you look like you're killing him. And then chicanery happens and he wins. And you're like, "Oh, that dastardly Ric Flair." That's Ric Flair's almost his entire career. He blades, he bumps, he throws himself hither and yon. Only Mr. Perfect can do it better than Ric Flair.
How he didn't need like 500 surgeries in his life more than what he had to have.
Right.
Look, especially doing that one thing where he does where the Shawn Michaels copies off of him, where they bump over the top, hit the buckle and go over the top rope onto the side, and then the Ric Flair fall. Come on, who doesn't love the
Ric Flair, when given the opportunity, will make anybody you want, anyone that he wants, look like $1 billion. That's Ric Flair's magic. And so here you have The Undertaker, who's going to win this match. He's going to beat the shit out of Ric Flair, and Ric Flair's there for all of it. That's what makes this match great. Ric Flair's like, "Yes, beat me, flay me, throw me around, treat me like the whore that I am." And The Undertaker says, "I will," and they did.
We never got Sting versus Undertaker, but I feel like this was like a close second to that.
Yeah,
you got your hardcore as much as Ric Flair jumped around in the late 80s, early 90s or whatever. He's still WCW. When you think of WCW, he's one of the top guys you think of. And this was your WCW versus WWF prime guys. Yeah. And I understand they did the whole reverse, where Undertaker was the heel and Ric Flair was the baby face. I wish that was reversed. I wish Ric Flair was more pursuing Undertaker than Undertaker with his big, bad, evil American badass thing.
Honestly, like, they should have said, not completely. I don't want to say this and be like, ugh. What if Ric Flair was trying to bang the Undertaker's wife?
Oh my gosh! That would have won. He would have been great as a stalker.
I didn't want to say it that way because I didn't want Ric Flair. I didn't want him to be the stalker. I just wanted Ric Flair to just he just walks through the locker room and he's like, "Hello, how are you?" And he's doing the wrestling shake, and then he sees the Undertaker's wife and he just drops his pants and he's like, "Huh?
Hey, look at the baby arm."
He starts windmilling, that whole thing. And the Undertaker tries to kill him because he flashed his dick at his wife, and now you have a feud.
Yes, that makes sense.
Imagine, take my hand and cross over this bridge with me, Neil.
All right.
Imagine it's the Randy Savage Ric Flair feud. She was mine before she was yours, but it's the Undertaker's wife instead of Liz.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And then he can even say,
do you remember buying that? I remember buying the magazine when I was a kid.
Yeah, we all did.
It's like, what? No way. Miss Elizabeth, that whore.
So good. But yeah, man, if they had not done that stupid shit with DDP, who had a hot wife already, not arguably, absolutely hotter than the Undertaker's wife. Like, sorry, Sarah, but no. Even like Michelle McCool. Like, look, I'm not here to bag on a man's wife, God forbid, but he was banging Kimberly. Just no. There's no universe where it's believable. The DDP looked away from Kimberly and it was like, yeah, Sarah Taker. No.
There's none. Not a cross universe, not this multiverse, not this dimension, not even Earth 313. Like, literally.
So again, imagine they save that whole, tweak it slightly. Don't make him a stalker, but just Ric Flair is just big sex pervert, and he wants to bang the Undertaker's wife, and the Undertaker's not having it. Now you have a feud. That would have been awesome.
I would have loved it.
All right, speaking of sex perverts, Edge defeats Booker T, which is fine.
Booker T is a sex pervert. Yep.
I was talking about Edge.
I know.
This was a good match, good solid match. The match that everyone wants to hear us talk about: Steve Austin versus the dearly departed Scott Hall, and
that guy.
You can tell Steve Austin doesn't want to be there. You can tell Scott Hall is really frustrated.
Yeah, in the world. I don't know if he was drunk at this time or, he was on that level. Addictions, guys. There's nothing we can do about it. But it was something we can do about it. But in this past tense,
I want to say Scott Hall cleaned up by this point. I think, again, going back to Steve Austin's not in a really great mental health place, and and Scott Hall has already got his own mental health issues, and I just think this was a clash of characters.
Yeah, and to be honest, Scott Hall, some of the promos he did leading up to this, it just seemed like he was just calling it in, because Scott Hall has had some great promos, and that's definitely in the WCW days and Razor Ramon era and all this stuff.
I'm wondering how many of them really wanted to be there. I feel like there's only one place to work. We kind of hate this company. We love it, but we hate it for all the reasons that I've talked about for years now, I'm sure. And it's and it's everyone just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah. And I really think and to be honest, I really wish this would have been like a tag match.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Nash just had knee surgery or something like that. There's something wrong with Kevin Nash. I know he was injured.
Yeah.
But they didn't let that known. But behind the scenes, we all knew. And I really would have loved to see Scott Hall and Kevin Nash versus Stone Cold and Kurt Angle, or, again, doing something that would have, continued kind of like that alliance kind of storyline and stuff like that. Because, again, why is Stone Cold Steve Austin, though, going against Scott Hall, defending the WWF basically and himself? After just 2 months ago, he was the leader of the people trying to take him down.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Long-term storytelling has long since died at this point.
Yeah, and at this point, everything was just I really feel like it was just a big confusion spot right there with Stone Cold, who's one of my favorite pro wrestlers. But man, this was a time in his life where it was all coming to an end. He knew it. Things were not going well in the world. So, it was what it was. Yeah, it was better than what I thought it would be. How about that?
This whole match can be summed up in Steve stunning Scott Hall and Scott Hall throwing himself into the upper atmosphere.
the old rock cell of the stunner back in the late 90s.
Yeah, it's like you take a stunner, and instead of just falling down, you run half a yard, do a front flip, do a back flip, do a split,
do a reverse triple 360 180 flip. Yeah,
jump over Rodney Dangerfield off the high board. The whole 9 yards. Moving on.
I know we're gonna go back to school, man. That's...
Right. Well, you know as well as I do that they look good to you and me, Billy and Chuck.
It was so funny because I actually got to meet them at Fan Access, and everybody was waiting in line because HBK was next to do. Nobody went up to them, and I was like, "So why is nobody getting their autograph and waiting back in line to go to Shawn Michaels?" They're like, "I don't know." So I ran up there, and I literally had a great conversation with Billy and Chuck. Great I go, "You guys know what you're doing, right?" And they go, "Oh yeah, we actually have a blowout for this at the end." And I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what that is." And then
ally of the LGBTQ community, the WWE.
Yeah, Billy was so nice. Billy was just, man, he was sweet. Every time I met Billy Gunn,
I've heard nothing but good things about Billy Gunn. It's a shame that he was so awkward as he was. I still remember him as rockabilly, and it's all right, go out there and be Elvis. I
literally, this entire match, I met every single tag team in this entire match at Wrestle Access. I literally have all their autographs in the program.
Very cool. So yeah, Billy and Chuck defeat the APA, the Dudleys, and the Hardys. My favorite memory of this match is I guess it was Saliva or somebody who's playing the Dudleys out, and the awkward dancing that the Dudleys had. Like, go out there and dance with the band.
Yeah, Stacy Keebler and like the lead Josie Scott of Saliva with his hover hand.
Yeah, like boy, she had a bubble around her. She's like, no, 6 feet.
This was the I always call WrestleMania 18 the Saliva and Drowning Pool Mania.
Yeah.
And then WrestleMania 19 is the Limp Bizkit
show, yeah. Which I don't mind, man. I like terrible music. All right. Finally, the main event of this show. Yes, there's 2 more matches after it, but we all know the main event of this show is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, the big double turn. You were there, I was there. I mean, we both know that whole crowd was so Hogan. They did not give a shit about
so
The Rock.
Insane. At first, when it first started, it was kind of 60-40 with Hogan on the 60 side. But then by the end of it, everyone in that arena wanted
it was like
Hogan.
99-1.
Except for the people that got in some like big brawl fight behind me in my section that like they took out half the section I was in. It literally before the match was over, security was behind me, like escorting like 30 people out of the building.
Wow.
Like
this is
insane.
This is one of the best matches in the entire 20-year history of WrestleMania that I've been covering. It really is really good. The Rock and Hogan are there 2 guys that get the industry more than these 2 do, and when you put them together, they created magic. And when you think about how old Hogan is at this point, Hogan had been around a good 10 years in 85.
Yeah.
Look, and now it's 2001 to 2002 rather. He's got to be in his 50s at this point. Yeah. And he's doing his best to keep up with The Rock, and The Rock is taking care of him. I've heard them both talk about this match and just how great it was to work together. You was like, this should have been Austin. It's fine that it was The Rock. It was the right guy. Storyline wise, iconography wise, maybe there's an argument for Steve Austin. But when you think about, you need a guy who knows what he's doing, who can take care of Hogan, a guy that Hogan can work off of. There was nobody better in the company, nobody better in wrestling at that point than The Rock, and they made magic.
They made a lot of magic.
They did.
I mean, like an elbow got screams. I mean, this is like, I have been to concerts with returning bands like the Beatles, without John Lennon, but like I've been to Super Bowls, I've been to concerts, I've been to, things that are known in history of things that happen in music and life and art, and nothing in my entire existence has ever felt like the energy of what the Sky Dome felt that night during this match. I have never felt the equal to it.
There have been a few times in watching wrestling, both on television and live, that I really felt the electricity of what magic wrestling can bring into your life. Daniel Bryan winning at WrestleMania 30, the ECW invasion, anytime the Shield showed up, there was always something, there's always something really cool. The night that CM Punk won the title from John Cena and ran off for a few weeks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, I really love this one. My favorite.
Those moments that leave you shaking, like, this was great. This should have ended the show, but it didn't. Instead, we got a girls' match after that nobody cared about. It was Chaz defeating Trish Stratus and Lita, which nobody saw because everyone was leaving.
One thing I got to go back to, 49 was how old Hogan was at the time.
Yeah, okay, there you go, almost 50.
Yeah.
All right, and then in the actual main event, the final match, one should say, certainly wasn't the main event. Poor Chris Jericho. Only Rey Mysterio knows how Chris Jericho felt, because when everyone wanted Daniel Bryan to show up as number 30 in the Royal Rumble, poor Rey Mysterio's whole life got shattered. The only other person to have experienced such
backlash,
such backlash is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho tried. Triple H tried. Stephanie McMahon tried. They all knew this was an impossible uphill slog to get the crowd back, which they never did. But this goes on before Hogan and Rock. Everyone's like, oh, it's a great match. They did, and Triple H got the hero's return that he's always wanted. They finally like Triple H. They finally like him. Okay, great. Dream come true.
People love me.
Yeah, and look, I don't begrudge Triple H that much. He wanted to be loved in the wrestling world. He finally got his opportunity. This was just placed all wrong. It's my one big criticism of WrestleMania 18, because I made the argument that WrestleMania 17 is historically monumental, but the work isn't as good. The work is, of all 20 WrestleManias, and I reserve my right to change my mind once I rewatch WrestleMania 20. But I think of all the WrestleManias up to this point, 18 and 19 has the best, most consistent work and star power of anything before it, with the possible exception of WrestleMania 3.
Yeah, and I think the reason being is because you had so many wrestlers in an atmosphere where now you don't have WCW as a background wrestling company. Everybody has to bring their A game, because tomorrow you might not have a job if you don't bring your A game.
Well, not only that, but I mean, now all the best wrestlers in the world are in one place.
Yeah.
Which
was WrestleMania 3 is a great example of that.
Right.
Because
that's what I'm saying. Like
territories.
Right. Yeah. So the WrestleMania 3 is sort of like the big super card of that era. WrestleManias 18 and 19 are all of the best guys you can find currently wrestling, all wrestling in one place, and all wrestling at the highest caliber. Like there's nobody is like awkward and junky. Everybody is spot on. Yeah. And it's really down now just a matter of personal preference. Which takes us now to the aftermath. All right, so Triple H has the undisputed title. The Rock has beaten Hogan. The NWO turned on Hulk Hogan. What to do next? So that takes us to Backlash. Now, by this point, and we do need to talk about this, but before we do, let me take care of some bills here. We were about to talk about the draft. The very, very first draft in WWE history, and the brand split. And if you are trying to compose notes for your draft or your brand split, whether it's wrestling or fantasy football or whatever, you might want to use Grammarly. For listeners of the Mania of WrestleMania, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. All right, Backlash 2002. Okay, so by this point, Ric Flair's been defeated. Vince McMahon's in sole ownership of the company. I think they do the brand split, and I believe Vince controls one side, Flair the other. The NWO goes one way. They split the Dudley Boys. Was the big deal here.
Well, we got Batista because of that, So.
Right. Batista, yeah. And then the champion is supposed to fight on both brands. What did you think of the very first brand split and the draft?
To be honest, when I was younger, I thought it was a great idea, and even today, separating it at the right times is a really good idea. But now that we're in the day where I've seen, certain tag teams fight the same tag teams 27 times this past year, now it's not too good of a thing. But back then I thought it was a great idea. I was like, oh, great. We get two champions. So we get, a champion here. We get a mid-card title there. I thought it was a great idea back then. The only thing I didn't like was exactly what you just said, like the splitting of people that made no sense. Yeah. Like, why split Bubba and Devon? Whose thought was that?
Because they thought they'd get another Shawn Michaels out of it, like they always do when they split up a tag team.
Sometimes you don't have a Shawn Michaels in a tag team. Sometimes you just have a really good tag team. And it's okay. The Road Warriors didn't have a Shawn Michaels, and they're considered one of the best, tag teams of all time. I mean,
and if they weren't the best tag team, they beat you until you agreed they were. We're the best. Fine, Hawk. Fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
I don't care.
You're right. You're the greatest ever.
My take on the brand split was it was the best way to manage a bloated roster, and it gave you don't if you think about the late Attitude Era, The Rock's on every show, Steve Austin's on every show. they're both on Raw and SmackDown. You're writing double the amount of stories. You're burning through matches so quickly, and guys aren't getting on the show because you have to have segments for The Rock, Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Kane, Triple H. And here's the thing. Once you split them, now guys that never get television time are allowed to shine on TV and get matches, and now they can be on the pay-per-view because you're doing brand exclusive pay-per-views now. And when you have the fan base to support it, it all makes sense to do that. So I was okay in theory. I think in practice, like you, I'm like, I don't love the way that they're doing a lot of this, but
I don't like how they're doing it today for sure. I mean, a lot of it, if I see like, the Street Profits versus the,
the Usos.
Versus the Dirty Dogs of the Usos one more time, I might just go outside and just.
If I see the New Day versus the Usos, I'm going to walk into the woods to live deliberately. Like I fucking had it with both of those teams.
90% of that team's injured right now. So,
well, yeah.
Kofi versus the Usos for the WWE.
Fucking Ridge Holland, man. Yeah. If he's not hurting himself, he's hurting somebody else. All right. So Backlash 2002.
So we get Triple H versus Triple H.
Yeah, we have Hogan versus Triple H for the world title, and Hulk Hogan ends up winning it. This was a fun era for Hogan. This is going to lead into next year's WrestleMania with him versus McMahon. He gets to do the stuff with Edge. As much as I'm not a huge Hogan fan, this era of Hogan post WrestleMania 18 is a lot of fun.
This was the twilight of his WWF career. This is like, okay, I get to reflect here. This is my reflection on life.
This is his Dusty Rhodes moment, sans polka dots. Like he's just here to have fun. He's here to have fun and have good matches and just be one of the boys. He doesn't have to carry the whole goddamn thing on his back anymore. Other matches of note: Undertaker versus Steve Austin, Eddie Guerrero versus Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle versus Edge, and then the next night after WrestleMania, the star of our second portion of this show, Brock Lesnar, debuts, and we begin the long march to his big win coming up at SummerSlam, and then his big win again at WrestleMania 19. But it all starts the day after WrestleMania, where he shows up and beats the fuck out of some guy who I don't even remember who anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him back at the it was the Raw before 17 was when they were bringing him out for dark matches.
Okay.
Brock Lesnar. I remember he was wearing like these maroon, ugly, like bicycle short kind of wrestling gear, and came out. And as soon as he came out, I just looked at my ex and I was like, that guy's going to hold a title soon.
So, like when people ask me, like, who's your favorite wrestler or who are your favorite wrestlers? And, I like the Ultimate Warrior. I like Goldberg. I'm that guy. I'll tell you, like, other than me, if Kevin Nash and Brock Lesnar fused into one guy, that would be my favorite wrestler ever. There'd be no one better. Just 7 feet tall, built like a brick shithouse, and actually athletic. Hoy, I'm gonna need to change the shorts. Yeah, could you imagine? He'd be incredible. And Brock Lesnar's not exactly that much shorter than Kevin Nash, but could you imagine like Kevin Nash's height with Brock Lesnar's frame and athleticism? And
people would die.
People would die, yeah. And that long, wonderful hair.
He's still being UFC right now, killing people.
Yeah, Cain Velasquez wouldn't have had a chance, and Mexicans would be sad. Anyway, so that's Backlash 2002. We move on to Judgment Day 2002. And this is the Undertaker who defeats Hulk Hogan. This was fun, that match. Again, still on the Hulk Hogan run here. We're having a good time. Triple H defeats Jericho in a Hell in a Cell. Edge defeats Kurt Angle, hair versus hair.
Hair versus hair. Oh my God, one of my favorite.
The promo for that was hysterical.
Not just the promo for that, but like, you know what we forgot to talk about really quick? Like, just touch on this for half a second. Wait a minute. Never mind. I think that's was Edge versus Booker T at 18? There's that 19.
No, because 19 is Triple H versus Booker T. That's the match.
So WrestleMania 18, we forgot to touch on this. It was our Edge versus Booker T. Do you remember what that match was about?
Vaguely, but go ahead.
is because he lost out on a shampoo commercial.
That's right. Oh my god. Okay, so
you
now
totally jumped over the shampoo commercial.
Okay, so you're right, and I did want to talk about that because it was so cringe. I'm watching. Like I've already made my case that I don't think they treated Booker T well, and Booker T, God bless him, he's doing the Lord's work and just shouldering the latent racism in that company. Just it's fine. Black people just get a hard time. I'm enjoying the money. Like I love Booker T. He will always be one of my favorites because they treat him so badly, and he just deals with it. He's fine with it.
Yeah, and to this day, one of my favorite stills of wrestling is when Booker T and Edge are in the middle ring, and the ref is about to ring the bell, and you see a guy sign behind them saying, "This match is because of shampoo."
Right.
I'm just like every time I'm like, dude, oh my gosh, you're right. This whole rivalry is based on shampoo.
Last weekend, I'm doing my rewatch of WrestleMania 18, and I'd forgotten about what the whole angle was, but I heard him do the shampoo promo. I mean, like, talking about his hair, and like you didn't talk about my hair and all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh, Booker T, no, Booker, like. Yeah. It's hard to watch a minstrel show in 2022. It really is.
I know. Poor guy.
Oh my god. The only thing that whole promo was missing was Blackerface. So I just poor bastard. And I remember
Edge was two sides to himself. Anyway.
And then I remember just writing to Pat going, this promo makes me hate wrestling. But what makes me love wrestling is Brock Lesnar defeating the Hardy Boys. Jesus Christ, I haven't seen two smaller men get taken out by a bigger guy since the last time I watched Oz. Jesus Christ. I mean, other than the Undertaker, Jeff Hardy ladder match, them two never got so much of a beating in their lives.
No,
Holy
that was
cow.
a straight beat down. And it just like, man, that was the build, because he beat down Jeff like just a month or two earlier,
right,
in his first pay-per-view debut. And then this one is like, oh, I'm gonna come help my brother Jeff. We're gonna get this guy. And it's like, no.
Backstage. So Brock, here's what we're gonna do. Don't worry about what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna do it, and you'll react. You're gonna have to, or you'll die. And the Hardy Boys are like writing out last will and testaments. They call it. They're like, dude, okay, Rock. Close, let Brock close it. No, Brock!
Oh my god. You know what the funny thing about this is, like, so first you have Brock versus the Hardys, which Hardys are very, how many championships at this time?
A lot.
They're actually very decorative tag team. And then one of the next matches, then you have two big guys going against one dude, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Big Show and Ric Flair. And he didn't he win? Didn't he beat him? Yeah, he beat him. Like,
of course he did.
So like you have Brock Lesnar. It's just so weird that it's a completely opposite.
That takes us to King of the Ring 2002. The Undertaker defeats Triple H for the Undisputed Championship, and Brock Lesnar wins the King of the Ring. Hey, the only thing I want to talk about here is this is where Austin quits and goes home.
Takes his ball and goes home.
So I just want to talk about this particular aspect of this. Steve Austin a zillion times has told this story, but he always tells it the same way. I've complained about this, and I just want to know that I missed something here. And so, since you seem to watch like shoot interviews and stuff, maybe you know. He always says, they pitched me the creative. I'm going to lose an unannounced King of the Ring qualifier to Brock Lesnar. Something's going to happen. We'll resolve it at a later date. He never says what the something is, and never says what the conclusion of the angle was ever going to be. He only says, they told me the creative. They told me what the plan was. I said bullshit. They said, do it anyway. I said, I quit. But I've never heard, like, they clearly had a plan, and the beginning of the plan was the collect underpants part of the plan was Steve Austin loses to Brock Lesnar in the King of the Ring qualifier. We never learned what step 2 or step 3 is. He's never talked about it. Do you have any idea?
As the crickets chirp in the background.
Hang on. I got you.
Literally no clue whatsoever. Like
Okay.
I just know the whole. I know that he was thrown the angle. He didn't like it, and he just every time always says we could make money off of those two going against each other. We can make money off of this. It shouldn't just be me in a qualifier match.
Right.
You know, I could
unannounced.
Yeah, me and him can draw money, and even Brock recently on the Pat McAfee show when he did his interview there said, I 100% understand why Austin. He goes, I didn't take it personally whatsoever. He goes, that makes perfect sense. We could have drawn big money back then with his name, my name. And he goes, so I get it. So I don't hold any grudge against him. He goes, I love Austin. Good dude, man. So he doesn't take it personally. So obviously, maybe it was just, a personal decision.
And again,
he's burned out.
Never talked about it. I would love to know what the eventual plan was that he couldn't live with himself.
Well, this Thursday, not this Thursday, I guess next Thursday, he is throwing a beer bash at Billy Bob's bar in Dallas, where he's going to release his new American Lager Broken Skull beer. I'm trying to get tickets to go to that so I can go meet him. Okay. That is the question I will ask.
Please, it says Mark Radulich from the Radulich and Broadcasting Network wants to know what Step 2 and Collect underpants were in your feud with Brock Lesnar. Please pitch to him that way. All right.
I'll figure it out. Hopefully that's not what I say, but they might kick me out.
What about underpants? Get him out of here.
I think it's like $100 ticket, man, so they might kick me out. I don't know.
All right. There's like nothing going on with this Vengeance match. This is BS. This is The Rock defeats The Undertaker and Kurt Angle in a triple threat. They've all wrestled each other a zillion times by this point. Booker T defeats The Big Show. John Cena's on this show. He defeats Chris Jericho. And that's it.
I think that's back when he was like Prototype still. He wasn't like Thugonomics yet.
And then Rob Van Dam defeats Brock Lesnar by disqualification for the Intercontinental title. I don't remember it, but obviously Brock Lesnar probably tried to murder Rob Van Dam, and they had to stop it before it was too late. Because next month, and you can see it right there in our graphic, it's the center postcard. It's the center poster. It's The Rock versus Brock Lesnar at the Nassau Coliseum. I was there for this in Uniondale, New York, right next to Hofstra University. Really? I was there for this live. Yeah. Shit, yeah, buddy. Oh my God. I fucking hated The Rock at this point. I have always loved Brock Lesnar. I've never not loved him. And I so wanted him to murder The Rock that night. And he did.
He annihilated. And
it was so good.
I just remember like the videos coming up to it, how they like even made The Rock kind of look like the villain from Rocky IV. You know, like where he's like using the computer technology machines to get buff and stuff. And here's Brock out here carrying the logs and like Rocky Balboa did in Rocky IV. So like mentally, I think they really messed with your heads there to try to, get Brock over a little bit more there. But yeah, I cannot before this, the only match the whole year that I even gave two shits on a twinkle at were, The Rock versus Hogan. Like this was the only other match that really mattered the entire year. I think
literally between March, the end of March, March 17th. So between March and August, nothing. It's just
I mean, you got like the happiness of there's Hulk Hogan again as the red and yellow and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like a feel good time in wrestling where they're just kind of going at it. And here comes this little rumble right after WrestleMania.
Yeah, 2002, 2003 is literally just the Brock other than the draft, it's the Brock Lesnar story.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So Brock kills The Rock. It's a great match. It's a perfectly good match. All anyone wanted was for Brock Lesnar to beat The Rock. The other match that anyone cared about on this show, I mean, this was a good SummerSlam. It was perfectly fine. But the only other match that ever stands out is this is the return. This is the third storyline of this entire year, is the return of Shawn Michaels.
Which is probably the best Shawn Michaels Triple H match, in my opinion.
It's up there.
It's, man, those two matches right there, that whole card. Oh my gosh,
that was such a great story. I believe the setup to this was like Sean had already like come back. I think he was doing the NWO thing there for a little bit with Kevin Nash. I think there was a bit where him and Triple H are backstage, if I'm remembering this correctly. That's why I wish Pat was here, because Pat's always good with the details. But I remember there being a backstage sketch where Sean and Triple H are backstage, and he gives him a bag, and he looks in the bag and he goes, "Oh my God," and he starts to laugh like maniacally. And he's like, "Oh, this is so great." And they come out as DX, and that's when Triple H turns on him.
Yeah, gives him that one, and then I'll be good come SummerSlam.
Something like that. But this was great. This was, he wrestled in like cowboy boots and jeans, and they really messed each other up. Like I remember being there live, and people just we bid on every kick out. We cheered every hit. It was a really solid match. Really, really good unsanctioned match between. Like it felt like there was a lot of emotion there between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So this was good shit.
Yeah.
Unforgiven, September 22nd, 2002, in the Staples Center, the home of WrestleMania 21. This is Brock Lesnar defeating Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker went to a double disqualification. Benoit defeats Angle. Triple H defeats Rob Van Dam. Oi. Rob Van Dam gets a shot at the WWF World Heavyweight Championship and loses because Rob Van Dam. And that's about it for that one.
You sure the hot lesbian action versus Kiss My Ass?
Moving on.
That was like one of the worst things ever. Oh, I hated that. Every time it's even mentioned to this day, I cringe.
No Mercy, October 20th, 2002. Brings you Brock Lesnar defeating The Undertaker, Hell in the Cell. This was a good one. Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker beat the shit out of each other. Great match. Triple H defeats Kane. This has to be the Katie Vick stuff now.
It is. It actually is. Point. Yeah, this is the time this is the Katie Vick time. You're correct.
And we're not even into the reign of terror yet, like we haven't quite hit the reign of terror Triple H time yet. I mean, this is the kind of like the rumblings of it, but we're not quite full on. Triple H has to beat literally every main eventer in the world out there. We're still, like they gave him the title and he's kind of keeping the Raw brand up at this point. Because the other thing that happens is Brock wins the title at SummerSlam, but then he won't leave SmackDown. So that's when by this point, Eric Bischoff's the GM of Raw, and Eric Bischoff just gives him the big yellow belt, the big gold belt. And so he's the Raw champion, Brock down's the SmackDown champion.
Yeah. And another match that's on this one that is actually, I think it's actually really good and undisputed. This is one of the first women matches that we see that starts building up the women's division from being more of the divas to actually women wrestlers, with Victoria versus Trish Stratus. This is one of those matches that start moving the women's movement. Pre-women's revolution diva, because I remember seeing the match. I remember seeing the Trish Stratus Victoria match, and I was like, okay, that wasn't just a good women's match. That was a good match, period. And that's when my eyes started going more towards the women's division.
Well, 2002, not just for Brock Lesnar, the return of Shawn Michaels, but also monumental because we get the very first Elimination Chamber at Survivor Series 2002. Which at Madison Square Garden, which, by the way, if you go into our archive, myself, Jed, and Gavin of the Boogie Nights chat, we did a alternative commentary for just that match, the very, very first Elimination Chamber. So
nice.
Check that out in our archive on W2Mnet.com. Anyway, that's the headline match here. Shawn Michaels wins the, after months and months of his comeback, after his, feud with Triple H. He wins the world championship in the very first Elimination Chamber against Triple H, Chris Jericho, Kane, Booker T, and Rob Van Dam. This was excellent. And it's so funny because I think I watched the Undisputed, not the Ruthless Aggression documentary series, and they dedicated an episode to the Elimination Chamber, and like Triple H is talking about like, yeah, the roof was really low. We didn't know how to work in this thing. Everything hurts.
Everything hurt. Yes. And to be honest, to this day, even though like what they've done over the years to the Elimination Chamber match and everything they've added and taken away and whatever they've done, still, I think these guys just brought it. Like, it's very hard to even think of an Elimination Chamber match off the top of my head right now that is stuck in my head as much as this one, because it's the first one someone got on top of it, you know, like Rob Van Dam did his thing off of it. Like, this was a really good match. I to this day am still a big fan of the first. I really feel like Shawn Michaels just needs to have his own wing of the Hall of Fame where he gets dibs for being the first ladder match, the first Hell in a Cell, the first Elimination Chamber match. You know, it's like he always does the matches first. So like, hey, we got a new match idea. Well, let's wait till Shawn Michaels gets out of retirement so we can throw him into it.
Yeah, Shawn was kind of the test dummy there for a while. If Shawn can work it, anyone can.
Right.
No, it was good. This was great. You know, the other match on here of note that anyone should care about is Big Show defeats Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, which is going to lead into Brock chasing the title into WrestleMania. Armageddon out of here, December 15th in Sunrise, Florida, at the Office Depot Center. Here we have the 3 stages of Hell match. I vaguely remember this, between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. We have a street fight, a cage match, and a ladder match. Triple H ends up winning. Kurt Angle defeats the Big Show for the WWE Championship, and we are on our way to WrestleMania.
And this is when Batista finally gets his own pay-per-view match as well. Finally, we're finally starting to see the beginnings of Batista. I mean, it's before he joins Evolution, but
right. All right, Royal Rumble 2003 sees Brock Lesnar win the Royal Rumble so that he'll have his match with Kurt Angle, and we will have ourselves a good old-fashioned shooter match several years after we should have had Ken Shamrock versus Dan Severn, but fuck you, WWF, for not giving us what we all wanted. We get Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar nearly kills himself, but we'll get to it. In the meantime, Kurt Angle defeats Chris Benoit to retain the WWE Championship, and Scott Steiner, oh boy, Scott Steiner is here to do math.
Hello, do you hear me?
Oh, yes. I've heard Bruce Pritchard talk about Scott Steiner here, and they had high hopes, but I guess, you know, you sometimes you wait too long and it's just not worth doing anymore, but you try anyway because maybe magic will happen. I think Scott Steiner was dealing with a lot of injuries. He had a drop foot issue. This was, you know,
I've never heard anything good about his run during this time where he had like so many, and he put up too much weight. His cardio wasn't at full.
This was on paper. This should have been gangbusters, but this is also, I would say this marks the beginning of the reign of terror.
Yeah.
This is where they just start feeding Triple H, like all these different guys. They start bringing in guys for Triple H to beat.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of Evolution. All of that starts here.
Hey, it's a mystery, man.
Yep. All right. So that's the Royal Rumble. We have one more pay-per-view, No Way Out, February 23rd in Montreal, Canada. The headliners are The Rock defeats Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin defeats Eric Bischoff. This was funny, actually. The Steve Austin Eric Bischoff match was wildly amusing.
Yes, because that's the when Austin and him were co-general managers of Monday Night Raw. And and then he kept on getting him drunk. I think it was the last one that
they kept on doing shtick. They brought Austin back just to do shtick. He's also about to depart. So I think at this point, like he had come back and he was doing his level best, but his body was like it does us all. His body was not willing. Triple H defeats Scott Steiner again. Reign of Terror. Brock Lesnar and Chris Benoit defeat Team Angle. And that's about it for No Way Out. And that takes us to, finally, WrestleMania 19. I think pound for pound, match for match, wrestler for wrestler, probably the best WrestleMania of all time.
Wow.
Like, in the 20-year history, I should say. Sorry, in the first 20 years.
above 17, above 3, above like where are you ranked at here?
Match for match, like work.
Yeah.
Think about work.
Yeah.
Think about star power. Okay. Think about consistency. There's not a bad match on here, not an unpopular wrestler, and it's just other than Brock Lesnar's unfortunate head bump, off his botch shooting star press. I don't have any it's a stadium. We've got rock stars. Like this feels like up to this point like the most complete WrestleMania to me, where I don't have a bad thing to say about it. It's got a little TNA, with the pillow fight, stupid thing that was.
I was gonna say, what about the pillow fight?
Like, was anyone looking for Owen Davey for the pillow fight? No, they were looking for
because even let's be honest, before we deep dive into this, the worst match on the entire card, and it wasn't their fault. Maybe they just didn't have the right chemistry or something just didn't go 100% right. Was Triple H versus Booker T. But
I don't even think that's a bad match. I
think it's some of it just weird, or the crowd didn't react right, or something was weird about it. But
in Booker T's defense, people aren't reacting to it because he's lost every single match in the history of his life.
Yeah,
joining this company,
loses this match as well.
Right, and so he's opponent.
If he would have won, I think it would have been a good match.
Right. So here's the thing: going into it, like he's treated like a second-class citizen. He hasn't won a match since the year of the flood in this company. He's treated like a joke. And then to the final insult, Triple H is like, you people don't win matches. But I mean you people. I mean you WCW people. Not black people. Never. Not me. I'm Triple H. I'm not racist. Anywho.
You know what I think? But the save. Well, actually, do your rundown like you normally do. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep jumping around if not.
No, you're fine. All right. So this took place in Seattle, Washington, at Safeco Field. It kicks off with Chief Morley and Lance Storm defeat Kane and Rob Van Dam, and this is on the pre-show. The pay-per-view proper begins with Matt Hardy and Rey Mysterio, and I thought they put on a solid match here.
Yeah, I rewatched, to be 100% honest, I didn't get a chance to rewatch this until last night. So I literally just watched this. So this is very fresh in my brain. I forgot how good of a match that actually was. Today's standards, it would be easily like almost like a main event on Monday Night Raw, because they went back and forth. You had Shannon Moore, interference here and there. They were trying to do that. But man, even seeing Rey Mysterio in that Daredevil outfit he had on during version 1, Matt Hardy. I
love that version of Matt.
Oh, I love that version of Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy with the version 1 stuff and the Matt facts and everything was hilarious, and a really great example of what the brand split could do for somebody.
Yeah, right.
Give him a little attention. Next match was the worst match on the card, and it's not the worst match I've ever seen in 20 years of WrestleManias. The Undertaker with Nathan Jones, who couldn't work, versus the Big Show and A-Train. I mean, they tried,
Yeah, at the last second, they just realized Nathan Jones couldn't work. Like, they just tried everything. They even tried giving him, like, where he just kicks the guys twice, and then Undertaker, I've heard so many stories about this. And I really think it was pretty much, okay, we got to go put on a match, guys. What can we do? And Big Show and A-Train and Undertaker at last minute just said, this, and this. Let's get these points, and then let's bring it home.
Let's just get this night over with. There'll be a WrestleMania 20. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Let's just get through it. Trish Stratus and Victoria and Jazz. This was all 3 women can work. All 3 women brought it. For this time period, for these 3 women, I thought this was a perfectly serviceable women's match. No problem.
Yeah. And again, it was, I really feel like the year of 2002, 2003 was the beginning of all women's wrestling, and not just like divas wrestling. And this was one of those matches that solidified it. Because again, Victoria, Jazz, Trish, you're talking about really 3 good workers, like in the
Team Angle, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin defeat Chris Benoit, Rhino, and Los Guerreros. This was great. All 6 of these guys could work. It was dynamic. It was moving. They put in a tremendous amount of effort here. This is your workers. This was your workers match of WrestleMania, and all 6 guys were absolutely fantastic.
And even the ending of this match, the nice little twist that they did, that's like, oh, it looks like they're going to win, they're going to lose. And, someone comes in and sneaks in and wins the match. Right. I thought it was really good. I forgot about this match. And I was glad I got to rewatch that one again.
It's nice to see Shelton Benjamin win.
Yeah. Who knew?
Right. Hey, he's a good wrestler. He should win matches. This next one is part of the reason why I say I think this is one of the best WrestleManias, if not the best in the 20-year history. Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho. Until Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, this match was like one of the best undercard WrestleMania matches ever. This was phenomenal and has an awesome ending where Jericho's like, I just needed to know, man. And he goes to give him a hug and kicks him right in the stomach.
Yeah. This was just I rewatched this match for years, back and forth. Anytime like someone's like, what's a match that I missed over the time I haven't watched wrestling since, the Attitude Era, and this is one of them I always bring up because Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels, this was them both at the top of their game, I believe.
After a 5-year absence, let's not forget that. The last time we see Shawn Michaels, his back is in a million pieces, and it's WrestleMania 14. This is 5 years later.
Yeah, and this to come back out. The only thing we got wrong is like what he had the soccer mom haircut at the time.
He was looking a little AJ Styles-ish.
Little AJ Styles, but these guys, they're back and forth, their work, they're telling of a story in this. All the way up till even after the bell, when it's like, oh, the match is over, everything's good, let's hug. Oh, I'm gonna hug you and kick you in the nuts.
Yep.
It's like
Chris Jericho, you dastardly man, you.
This is the reason I love both of these pro wrestlers.
Yep. It was the thing where like I can go. You can go. We're both workers and athletes. Let's just go. Throw caution to the wind. Don't worry about the WWE style. Don't worry about who's before us or who's after us. Let's have the best match on this card. And they did. It was fantastic. All right. So the next one, Triple H versus Booker T. You said it was awkward. It didn't quite work for you. I thought it was okay. I just feel like it was Triple H sort of dragging Booker T across the finish line, because Booker T's like, why do I need to put effort into this?
I really
why am I here?
I totally agree with that. And again, I think this should have been a win for Booker T. And then, if you want Triple H to have the title, just beat him the next pay-per-view. You do it all the time. You do it the next night.
You beat him in the same night. Can we just have a moment?
Yeah. Give us the Booker T win, because the whole time Booker T came from WCW until this point, until King Booker, I did not think he got a good fair swoop. Like even the Stone Cold Steve Austin Booker T rivalry that they had there for a little bit, like I was just like, man, yeah, I like this. I like that where they're going with this, and then he just gets beat again. So it's like
they all seem to have this, like, we're willing to work with Booker T if we can just run a train on him, no lube. If he's willing to sit for that, I can work with him. I have to fuck you every single time, though.
Yeah,
no lube. You don't get to enjoy it. You just have to sit for it. Yep. Yes. Yeah. It's lay back and think of England. But I'm absolutely willing to do this with you on television. Can you imagine being Booker T in that situation? Like, okay.
Yeah, dog.
So I get a steady paycheck. I get to be on TV all the time. I get to be considered a star, but you're going to fuck my asshole every single time.
Hey, you know what's great? It'd be great for your career, Booker T, if we give you the guy with Tourette's as your tag partner.
who kind of does a pervy gimmick. It'll be fine.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It's amazing the King Booker thing actually happens, and it's as good as it is. It really is.
I love the King Booker.
Could you imagine you're sitting it if that was the plan? Like you say, listen, for the first couple of years, you're gonna be the low man on the prison totem pole. We're gonna dress you we're gonna put you in lipstick in a dress, and we're gonna pass you around, and you're gonna feel bad about yourself. But at the end, you're going to be awesome, and people are going to love you.
Isn't that what they did to Triple H after the curtain call too?
See, that's bullshit, and I've addressed it many times.
I know.
The hog pen stuff was pre-curtain call. Everyone should go back and actually look at history.
Yeah, I 100% don't believe. I mean, it's just because he didn't get his King of the Ring win that year. Whoopie-doo.
That's the worst thing that happened to him.
Yeah,
the worst.
whatever.
All the shit he talks about in interviews, and I said this on a previous podcast. Like his story about, I got punished after the curtain call is horseshit. Because all the stuff he references as punishment happened before the curtain call. Hogpen shit was like 95, 96.
Yeah. And Ultimate Warrior beating him in like 7 seconds or whatever it was.
But that was before the curtain call.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the thing that he references.
Right.
But,
I would have beat the Ultimate Warrior. No, you weren't, you son of a bitch. You lying.
No, because he was the Ultimate Warrior and you're some.
Yeah, you were Schmagegi McGee, who they picked up from WCW Saturday Night.
Yeah. Terrorizing.
Terrorizing. Wrestling is gay. So anyway, in the best match of the night, I say that a lot. Hulk Hogan, Mr. McMahon. Look, you're in for the ride that this one gives you. There are some like matches that are about the work, and then there are some are about the pomp and circumstance. This was absolutely about the guy who testified against McMahon versus the guy who beat the federal government. It was amazing.
That's literally this was literally what they said this was all about.
Yeah.
It was this was hey, Grandpa thinks he can still fight. Like, let's go get it. Let's start Grandpa Wars.
Yeah.
And see who's what old man can beat what old man up.
Fucking bum fight on steroids.
In the middle of the old man facing the other old man, what do you do?
Out comes one hip McGee.
You bring out the other old man.
Well, you know, brother.
and then you make it like he's gonna choose someone else to
right.
beat up. I was like, Rowdy Piper, yeah, man, you're old.
I have a special place in my heart for this. These two guys. I mean, who knows the business more, and when it comes down to putting on a match than Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. And like, it was like, we're just going to do everything to each other, just everything. Yeah. And it's so good.
I really feel like, and maybe the Edge stuff was after this or stuff like that, but I really feel like this is the end of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is and I don't mean like,
I think after this, he does the Mr. America thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, which was hilarious. I guess that was pretty funny. But I mean, like, I just felt like this was like the frosting on the cake. This was like, if you ended your career here and not do Mr. America, not go do TNA and ruin that whole entire wrestling program.
Not tank an entire company.
Don't tank an entire company that barely made it, that's still alive. If he didn't do any of that, I think this would have been a great end of the story. I mean, just a couple months later, they have like the Ultimate Hulk Hogan DVD comes out with like the 5 disc. I remember getting it and just sitting down and watching it straight forward. Gosh, no wonder nobody liked me. But yeah, they beat the hell out of it. So many chair shots to the head.
Yeah,
so many. I mean, this is before we all knew about the concussions.
I was going to say this is now why Vince McMahon is mumbling to Austin Theory incomprehensibly.
Yeah. Make a statement.
He's like a Wookiee with laryngitis now. He's just like Austin Theory. Yes, Vince.
Oh my gosh. A Wookiee with laryngitis. I gotta get that as like a tattoo or something.
Aren't you glad you came on today? All right. In the co-feature match, this is the Austin's retirement match. This is the last hurrah. The Rock defeats Steve Austin. He finally gets his win over Steve Austin at WrestleMania. The Rock beat him at Steve Austin beat The Rock for the first time to regain the title at WrestleMania 15. He beat him by joining forces with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 17. And finally, Chris Bailey. The Rock beats Steve Austin, and Steve Austin goes to do a podcast about rats.
And The Rock leaves and goes to Hollywood.
Yes, this is
again, because he came back from Hollywood. Because
Yes.
SummerSlam was he left and he went and filmed Scorpion King, right? And that's when he comes back, and this is the reason he came back, and he was the bad guy because everybody booed him. Like it was like the first night I think it was that he came back on Raw, and everybody just booed him uncontrollably, and he's
but
like,
then he juggles and dances for everybody, and everyone's like, "Oh, The Rock is so funny." So
yeah, and then he's like, "No, I'm going to be the villain now." No, you guys, and then everybody's like cheering him. He's like, "No, you don't get cheering Rock. You get villain Rock."
I was going to say, is this when he did the this is not sing along with The Rock?
Yeah.
Okay, that's that era.
That era.
All right, and then finally, this is it, man. I told you I love good shooter matches. I love it when guys who know how to shoot work that stuff into their matches, and it makes it look like a real wrestling match and a real struggle. It's a shame. We were talking about this the other night. A bunch of
stinger.
us.
Yeah.
Well, everybody. Brock Lesnar has gone on record saying he can hit the shooting star press. He did it a whole bunch of times in OVW.
Yeah, he did. But there's plenty of videos of it.
Right, but the OVW ring's about the size of my, my desk computer. So it's not big. So I think the WWE ring is actually bigger than traditionally most wrestling rings.
It is actually the biggest wrestling ring in all of history, actually.
So looking back, I think guys that don't work out in that ring, I think it's why part of the reason why they do what they do with NXT. People need to get a chance to work out in that ring and adjust themselves because you're used to doing things one way with X space. Now you're in Y space. You have to add things to it in order to accommodate. And so I don't think Brock Lesnar could. I think they told him maybe practice a few times. I don't remember if he did or not from the stories Bruce Pritchard told, but whatever happened, he misjudged it. And I was saying, like, rewatching it again, it's not like he lands full on his head. It's like, imagine you're landing a plane, right?
Yeah.
You're landing a plane and you gotta, you're landing, the wheels are out and you touch down and you roll on the tarmac. Now imagine you miss the angle and you do this instead.
Yeah.
That's what happened to him. He, for those of you listening in traditional audio, he basically rammed his head between the mat and Kurt Angle's body.
Yeah.
So he kind of just slides in. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, he landed on the top of his head."
He didn't get any injuries like that. He just gave himself what is known as a stinger.
Right.
Where he was way out of it for the rest of the match.
Yeah. Imagine you're diving into home plate, but you hit your head first.
Yeah.
What he did.
But the thing is, he still finished the match. He still made it through that match. It took him a second to get his wind about him, but he even did the celebration at the end and stuff like that. And I mean, I think at that point, man, they need to keep bottles of water next to the stage, or next to the ring or something. Throw some on these guys to wake them up a little bit.
Like smelling salts.
Yeah, something, because if they're going to continue, because the show must go on.
Yeah, we killed a guy once. We didn't stop the show. You're not stopping for a head injury.
He would have wanted to happen. To go anyway.
Yeah, sweep his carcass out of the ring and keep going is what Owen Hart said.
Yeah. I lived in Kansas City for 10 years, and people think that the reason they still keep Kemper Arena around where he passed away. It's a historic site. And people think he haunts the building, that Owen Hart haunts Kemper Arena.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, so, I would haunt it too. I'd haunt Vince, though.
Up until the unfortunate shooting star press, I love this match. It's one of my favorites. Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. It's one of the reasons I was excited to talk about this, because I really love the Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar match. I just like every match Kurt Angle was in throughout the WrestleManias he's been on were pretty stellar. Whether it was like triple threats with Jericho and Benoit, or this one with Brock, even like the one with Kane. It's like, how do you have a bad match with Kurt Angle?
And if I remember correctly, didn't they wrestle before WrestleMania? And that was the one where Kurt Angle did because he had the Team America at the time with the world's greatest tag team, and then his brother or lookalike or something like that was underneath his hoodie, because Brock had to beat the world's greatest tag team to then get the chance to go against Kurt Angle. And then when he went to go after Kurt Angle, he rolled him up real quick, and the ref's going 1, 2, but then Brock just jumps out of the ring in the middle of the count and is like, what's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And nobody knows what's going on. And then he gets back in, and Kurt Angle does a small package real quick to get the 3 count. And it was like his brother, Kurt's brother, was underneath the hood or whatever that he was wearing at the time. Stuff. Do you remember that storyline?
I vaguely remember it. So in a parallel universe, Brock Lesnar goes on to lead the company for the next 10 years as its champion. But in our universe, he gets pissy and quits the company.
And tries to go be a Minnesota Viking.
Yes, yes, he does. And then he tries to be an MMA fighter, and he tries to wrestle in Japan, and he tries so many things. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
But so no, this is the Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle again. This is going to be like your Rock and Austin. This is going to be like your Triple H versus Shawn Michaels. It's going to be even your Macho Man versus Steamboat. This is like one of the matches that they just get it. Their chemistry in this match, the reversals, the near falls, because this is a time when near falls weren't really as big as a thing as it was, but as it is now.
Yeah.
But in this match, everything was just golden. Again, like you said, up to the star press, this was just pure gold. This is a 4.99999 match, and it's only 0.001 of one. It's not because of Brock Lesnar almost killing himself.
Agreed. The thing I like best about this show is Limp Bizkit. And Limp Bizkit actually
yes!
Limp Bizkit has a new album
my
out.
Way! It's called, my way.
It's my way, you're the highway. Have you heard Still Sucks yet? Have you heard the new Limp Bizkit album?
Yes, I have. I listened to all the Limp Bizkit, even the one they released a couple years ago that was just like songs.
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, we did a review of it. Actually, for us, a very popular review that you can find in our archives. And if you want to hear Still Sucks or any of the previous Limp Bizkit albums, check out our 30-day free trial of Amazon Music Unlimited. Yes, sir. Head over to getamazonmusic.com/W2M network for your free 30-day trial, and you can listen to the entire Limp Bizkit catalog for free on us. After your 30-day trial ends, you can cancel it, no fuss, no muss, or you can keep it and pay the monthly fee. It's right up there with Spotify and Apple Music, but it's a much better service. Neil uses it all the time. He endorses it. Amazon Music Unlimited for all your music listening needs. If you want to take that cookie and stick it up your use Amazon Music Unlimited. All right, and that
I have Alexa in every single. Like I even have a bar where I have like 2 Alexas, so I can have like stereo
dueling
sound.
Alexas. They get into a fight with each other. So this is it.
Sometimes they do.
We have just concluded our 19 years of WrestleMania. Next month, the week of WrestleMania, week after rather, we will be concluding our look at the 20-year history. That's it. We're done. We're not going past 21. I don't need to examine in thorough detail the John Cena years. So I'm done. We're tapping out at 20.
You know why you don't want to examine the John Cena years?
Because I can't see them.
You can't see him.
Yeah, baby. So anywho, this has been Pat will hopefully be back. Again, he had a work thing. It's been fun. We started this journey. We wanted something else to talk about, and we said, hey, let's do deep dives into these WrestleManias. And I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of fun conversations. I was glad that this caught on and you came on, Stuart came on. We had Chris Bailey there for a little bit, and people seem to have enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed doing this. So we'll do it one more time. We will look at the Workers main event of Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, rather, both winning titles on the same, winning the championships, though Eddie was retaining on the same night. A celebration of the hard work that the mid-carders over the past 5 to 10 years were doing and toiling through. So and
return of number 20 is the return of one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. Right? It is the return of the real Undertaker.
Oh, that's right. Yes. All right. So like and subscribe on YouTube. We're on Twitch. We're also on every one of your podcatchers. Please check out the link is in the right link now is in our description of this podcast. Check out our Discord for to interact with us. Also, a lot of my personal social media is on there. My Snapchat, my TikTok. That's all in the description of this podcast. Feel free to hit me up for questions and concerns and complaints. So with that, hey, you do a podcast where you talk about movies. Some of them don't suck.
That is correct. Me and another guy named Chris, we review 2 movies every week, either from streaming services or from the movie theaters, called Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. You can find us on Facebook at MTDS Podcasts, or you can find us on Instagram at MTDS Podcasts, or follow us on Twitch at MTDS Podcasts as well. That's Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do.
Thank you for joining us here on the Mania of WrestleMania. For Neil Blackwood, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.